Good evening and welcome to the first Historic Preservation Commission meeting of 2024. It is January 18th. The time is 5:20. Meetings are broadcast live on Glendale TV, viewable on Spectrum Cable, Channel 6, and AT&T Uverse, Channel 99. Meetings are also streamed live in high definition on the city webpage, glendaleca.gov/live, on youtube.com/myglendale, and on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, iOS, and Android devices using a free app called Cablecast and choosing Glendale TV from the menu. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. For program schedules, call 818-548-4013. For public comments and questions during the meeting, call 818-937-8100. Public comments on a specific agenda item will be taken when that agenda item is discussed. If you have any questions about matters on the agenda or requests for assistance, please contact the city clerk at 818-548-2090 during regular business hours. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Jurka?
Here.
Commissioner Paul?
Here.
Commissioner Head?
Here.
Whom we welcome, and we can welcome more formally during commissioner comments if you'd like.
Yes.
Commissioner Doom is either late or absent, and Chair Crignani.
Present.
Very good.
At this point, I think we need to select a chairperson for 2024.
I think that you, Chris Crignani, have a flair as chair.
flair for the chair?
I think you do an excellent job, and I happily renominate you.
Yeah,
Well,
I second
will
that.
accept. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to have a vote for vice chair at the same time
Oh,
or separately?
sure. Anyone here want to be vice chair?
Be vice chair.
Would you? Okay. I nominate Kathy Yurka to be our vice chair.
Second.
Great. Let's do roll call.
Okay, so for together, we are looking for Commissioner Head to vote yes or no.
Yes.
It'd be funny if you voted no. Commissioner Paul,
Yes.
Commissioner Jurka,
Yes.
and Chair Crignani.
Yes.
All right.
Item number 2, the agenda for January 18th, 2024, regular meeting of the Glendale Historic Preservation Commission was posted on January 15th, 2024 on the bulletin board outside City Hall. Pending and proposed historic district updates is on there? Is that?
I'm
On
sorry.
the agenda, it says pending and proposed historic district updates. I'm wondering if that maybe was supposed to be somewhere else.
Where's?
To the right
Oh,
underneath.
that's weird.
Yeah,
That's
it's floating
some
off into
strange thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
that belongs later, right? Hey, we're going to skip that.
We're gonna bring it up later.
Yes, skip it. Hold off for now. Approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting in October of last year?
I have a correction.
Sure.
The minutes say that regarding the property on Riverside, that there was a motion to recommend that it be approved for the Glendale Register and a Mills Act contract, and that was not what we did. It says, it has it correct in the accompanying pages.
Where?
It's item
Help me find that. I'll fix it if obviously that's wrong.
It's on page
Oh, yeah.
5.
Oh, right. Yeah. Whoa. Oh, no. Oh, page 5, you said?
Of the minutes, page 2.
7B.
Page 2.
Oh, sorry, but it's page 5 of the PDF. That's what I'm.
Yeah, I'm looking at the minutes.
So second page, item 7B.
Oh, on the agenda, not on the minutes.
No, on the minutes from last meeting in October.
Yeah, it's the minutes.
Help me here.
I think that's the record of decision. It's just before the record of decision, Jay, I think.
Okay, 7B. Recommend. Oh, of course, yeah. Okay, we'll fix that. The motion, I'll check my notes, but it was to approve the project, basically. Thank you.
Here's Mr. Doom.
Oh.
Welcome.
Hi.
Mr. Doom arrives at 5:25.
It's all right. It happens.
3:30 doctor's appointment, and it ran late.
It did. Okay. Well, welcome. We've established a chair and vice chair. I'm going to continue being chair. Commissioner Yorka is going to be our vice chair this year.
Correct. Great.
Yes. And you're just in time to approve the minutes. Here's the minutes. We did have one correction on this page that it was, what was the
No
correction?
motion.
Ultimately, that was,
There was a motion to approve the
no second.
project.
oh, it was motion to approve the project, not
Okay.
establish it on the historic
Recommends.
registration or anything. Register.
Yeah, and we just need a motion and a second for that.
So now we just need a motion or a second to approve those minutes with those changes.
Yes, I motion to approve the minutes with the changes.
I'll second.
Great. Roll call, please.
We don't need to do that?
We don't.
Yeah, for
Great.
agendas, I think, for minutes, you just,
Terrific. Okay, item number 4, oral communications. I have 3 speaker cards. We will start with Bob Nixon. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners.
You technically have 5 minutes, I have to tell you that.
okay, and we have slides, just to draw your attention, we have slides for Mr. Nixon's presentation.
My name is Bob Nixon. I'm here today to speak to you about 1620 Idlewood Road. As you may recall, I spoke before this commission back in February of last year regarding the changes that were taking place at this address. 1620 Idlewood Road is part of the South Cumberland Heights Historic District, and as you know, historic districts are governed, changes to buildings in historic districts are covered by Glendale's design guidelines for residential buildings in adopted historic districts. Can I have the next slide, please? Your commission plays an important role in preserving historic districts. Apart from rendering decisions on review applications, you are further charged with exploring means to protect districts. The proponents of historic districts need your help to ensure that the promise that's embodied in the design review guidelines is fulfilled. Could I have the next slide, please?
Jay?
Next slide, please.
Thank you, sir.
Pause that refreshes. and-
Okay, so on the left is an ad from a 1926 edition of the Los Angeles Times advertising 25 bungalows in and around Idlewood Road. The house pictured in the ad is not 1620, which is the property we're going to be talking about in a moment. This property is just a few doors down the street, but it shares many of the same characteristics of 1620 Idlewood Road. But you will note toward the bottom and highlighted in yellow that the sales office for O'Neill and Son Builders was 1620 Idlewood Road, and that's the house that we're going to be discussing. So, next slide, please. O'Neill and Son wasn't just an ordinary construction company. They built at least 9 mansions in the Los Angeles area by one of our greatest architects, Paul Revere Williams. These are mostly in Beverly Hills. Next slide, please. As O'Neill stated in his ad, these bungalows are homes of character and individuality. You'll notice the half timbering, the porte-cochere, multi-light coffered windows, and a unique peak doorway with a 2-light door in the front. This house has survived nearly 100 years without a major exterior alteration. Next slide, please. But that brings us to today. The half timbering is gone. The coffered windows are gone. The unique entryway is gone. The driveway and curb cuts, they're enlarged and out of keeping with the neighborhood. The windows on the left side of the house, as we look at it, are nearly doubled in size and the number of lights. None of these changes adhere to the design guidelines. Next slide, please. Now, I've met today with Jay, and I've been told that this matter has been turned over to the city attorney's office, and that's good for 2 reasons. First, it's good to know that the city is pursuing this, and hopefully they will require the restoration of all these character features of the house. The second reason it's good is because I won't have to go on an emotional rant about the changes that have been made to this particular structure. But we need your help. You have an important role to play with regard to historic districts. We need you to help educate homeowners about what they can and can't do in historic districts, and this pamphlet is a great step in that direction. We also need greater transparency as to the enforcement actions and stop work orders that are being issued by the city. this information is not available online, so concerned citizens would have no idea whether a stop work order has been issued, whether it's been fulfilled, or whether it's been violated. We also need your help to encourage greater enforcement by the city of the design review guidelines. The residents of historic districts have made a commitment by establishing historic districts, and we need your help to get the city to make an even greater commitment to the enforcement of the design guidelines. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I make a comment? I know we're not allowed to discuss this project or to have a group discussion. I am glad to hear that the city attorney's office has been involved. I would like to say that as someone who really relied a lot on the former property portal, that was much, much easier to navigate and get information. And so far as I know, the new portal, which has been up for 2 years now, still does not,
I don't think it's 2 years, but
a year and a half.
maybe.
Still does not identify historic properties. That's all coming soon. Whereas the old one flagged historic properties in a way that was very legible to residents. So I really hope that that will come forward sooner rather than later. Also, just because of your concerns about transparency, we do have an election. And so I hope that's a question that you'll be asking, because I know transparency in local government is always a concern for residents. So thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
I have a general question, maybe Jay can answer, maybe one of you knows. If someone buys a house in a Glendale Historic District, is the realtor legally obligated to tell them that they are moving into a historic district?
As a
Well,
realtor,
Chris
I can
could
tell
answer
you.
that best.
Yeah, as a realtor, I can tell you the seller is, absolutely.
So absolutely must. So people who move,
There's actually a specific question on one of the main disclosure forms that they fill out. Is the house historically designated or in a historic district or even a pending historic district?
so the people making these changes know exactly that they're already living in a historic district, they're just ignoring it.
Not necessarily. We can't say that in every case.
Okay, yes, I can't say in every case. I will say that many buyers that come through properties ask that question. A lot of buyers who have been shopping in Glendale a long time know that there are restrictions for homes that are historic, and people that don't want to live in those homes will always ask that question.
Okay.
Even if it's not in a district, they'll ask just to
Got it.
make sure. So yeah, there's a legal requirement on the seller's part for sure.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
But what does happen is that people will undertake, they may not know that they're in a historic district, but they would undertake that work without a permit.
Yeah.
And so, and that level of work requires several permits in order to do, because you're changing structural features, you're changing the window openings, that requires a permit, so.
You just
and
said,
windows.
wait, you just said that they may not know they're in a historic district?
That's what
It
Mr.
is
Platt said.
possible. We have heard that not every realtor does their due diligence, or people don't notice, don't want to notice. I don't know what there are an infinite variety of possibilities there.
But what I'm asking is it a legal obligation?
Well, okay,
Are they
actually
breaking
answer-
the law by not telling, by not
Answer your
knowing?
question. I shouldn't say it's a legal obligation. I should say that there is a specific question on the
okay.
disclosure forms that they fill out.
Got it, okay.
Whether the buyers read those forms closely or what. Again, it's not really a realtor's obligation, but
Right.
it's certainly it's good practice for a realtor to disclose something like that, sure. And there are questions in the multiple listing service also that you can check about whether a property is in a historic district. So there's plenty of opportunities for buyers to know.
But it is a legal obligation to disclose it on the seller's behalf.
Okay, so I'm not an attorney. However, there is one form that is state mandated called the Transfer Disclosure Statement. And if there's a moment, if we have a break, I will pull one up on my computer to see, on my laptop, on my iPad, to see if it's actually on the TDS as well. There are some specific legal questions that are required. The seller property questionnaire is something that the Realtor Association's attorneys have created and drafted over years and years and years, and it's collective of, it's 4 pages long, and it asks every question you could possibly think of related to the property's history. And so that is inserted into the seller property questionnaire, but that's not actually a legally required document in the transfer of real estate and of real property. And in fact, if a property is sold by the inheritors of a parent's home or a trustee who's never lived in the home, those people don't even have to fill out the transfer disclosure statement. So the legal obligation is fuzzy. It's fuzzy. But if the seller is given the seller, every traditional homeowner selling their own home that they've lived in fills out the seller property questionnaire, and most of them do because the purchase agreement states they should, then that question is asked. And hopefully they're not lying about it. And an agent with any knowledge of the neighborhood will disclose it too.
Thank you.
Question for Jay.
Jay, where would a resident find out if there was a stop work order issued?
Ask the question, where would a city employee look to find out where there's a stop work order, that we have a problem? So we're looking into that as of today, when I learned the extent of that problem. So
Great.
it's not easy.
Thank you.
So. But anyone can call us when they're concerned about what someone's doing, and we notify from staff level when we get a call or an email. We notify neighborhood services or building and safety, depending on who's responsible, and that begins the process. A stop work isn't always issued in every case. So
When you say call us, you mean someone in the planning department? When you said they can call us, and we'll tell them, you mean someone in the planning department?
Well, theoretically, they can call the city,
us.
and hopefully someone figures it out. But when they call us, everyone knows what to do when those calls come in. So.
Okay. Cool. Okay, our next speaker is Liz Radley. Hi, Liz.
Good evening. I'm Liz Radley. I'm president of the Glendale Rancho Equine Advisory Committee, which is a 501c3 we established in part to assist with the city better understanding our neighborhood. I'm also the admin of the Burbank Glendale Griffith Park Equestrians. We have about 8,000 members, including people who come in with their horses to our neighborhood.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you maybe move the microphone a little closer? I have a feeling that you may not.
Turned up the volume
Oh,
also.
okay.
All right. Better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Would you like me to repeat that?
No.
Okay. We have hundreds of horses who live either in the backyards in our neighborhood or in the Glendale Equestrian Zone. It's our general feeling that because horses came to this neighborhood really with the De Anza Trail prior to the creation of the United States of America, we believe that the fact that horses sleep now still on the same dirt that they slept on 2,000 years ago has historic preservation value. And so I'll be bringing to a future meeting a video to tell you more about our neighborhood and why we love it so much, why we have a strong neighborhood group. And at our last meeting, which was a couple of days after your last meeting here, where you talked about the Betty Davis house, which we love, and we love all the decisions that you've made on that. But there were just a couple of comments I want to just refer you to. The stables there are not historic, but they are well built, as the new owner said. And so for horses, it's not how old the building is that they live in, it's how good it is to live in, right? So we would prefer that you not encourage people to tear stables down just because they're not historic. Or at least to say, if you don't have horses, are you just going to tear the stables down? That's a bit like if you buy a house by a lake and you go, well, if you're not going to get a boat, are you just going to rip the dock out? You know. So we just want to sort of bring that love of not just horses, but we have a lot of dogs, we have chickens, we have goats. We don't talk about the price of eggs, we talk about the price of chicken feed. It's a different neighborhood, and we love it. And I hope that even though you may not live there, you may not be horse people, we will bring you a video in the future so you can see why we feel that way. But I just kind of wanted you to be aware that at our regularly scheduled meeting, just a couple of days after your meeting, when we reviewed the comments along with, we had about 35 people there, along with Senator Portantino and Adi Kosakian. And, you know, we were seriously talking about the rancho and how little it's known, even in our own city. People literally gasped at the concept of tearing stables down. And I know that Jay is aware of that as part of our. We're kind of known for the passion with which we view the horses in our neighborhood. So, thank you, and I'll see you when I bring the video, along with a few other people as additional emotional support.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. Alan Durham.
Hi,
Hi,
good
Alan.
evening. Chair Craig Noddy, Commissioners, Jay Platt. First, I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Head on his appointment. When I saw his appointment, I thought, I think I have one of his books. And I have your book on Paul Evans, the furniture designer. And then I also saw that you had written a book on Wallace Neff's bubble houses. And although I don't have the book, I've toured the house in Pasadena. I don't know if that's the last remaining one, but it was such an important thing, innovation, to document after World War II. And I wouldn't have expected it from Wallace Neff either, given the mansions he built. Anyway, I'm here to speak about the city website as far as historic districts go. I previously spoke at a city council meeting or a hearing on streamlining the historic district process. And my comments had a little bit of impact, but not much. So, and it's ironic because the city council, one of their issues was how effective the city's outreach is when additional historic districts are proposed. I spoke to point out that the city's historic district web pages were appallingly out of date at that point. Casa Verdugo and South Cumberland had been approved as historic districts over a year before, and the web page was still listing 2021 outreach meetings for those proposed districts. So what happened after I spoke is the city, someone did revise, they omitted the two proposed, outreach meetings for the two proposed districts and moved those districts down to designated historic districts. But when they move them down, they don't contain all the information that's supposed to be provided. You know, the information's supposed to include the application and designation, historic resource surveys, the district map, the individual survey forms for each home in the district, the materials and presentations from public meetings and hearings. And most of this information is missing for South Cumberland and Casa Verdugo. My bigger point is there's no information on there currently, if I'm correct, 3 proposed districts, Cleveland Knoll, another Verdugo district, and Bellhurst. And I think Bellhurst is already undergoing a survey. All 3 have final applications some time ago. You can't find out anything about those 3 proposed districts. I had the question, is my residence in Cleveland Knoll? Talking to neighbors, one person told me, no, it cuts off the street north of you. Another neighbor said, yes, it cuts off on the street south of your block. But, you know, there's not even a map, much less the application posted. It doesn't even list Bellhurst, Cleveland Knoll, and Verdugo. And so all this talk about outreach, and you know, there are just no postings. You wouldn't even know if you live in these areas. You can't even tell, will I be in the area, much less what's going on with the process, where the process actually is. I doubt there'll be updates for outreach meetings. Maybe there will be, but there should be. It'd also be nice if a homeowner could sign up to get emails of anything pending with the city on outreach for these districting. Because if I hadn't looked at your agenda, you know, for today, I wouldn't have even known you were going to get an update on historic districts. That's not on the web page. You know, you can't sign up to get notification that this committee or commission's going to hear, you know, the status of, I assume, the 3 proposed districts. But it would be, I think it makes it much harder to form historic districts if residents can't get any information at all from the city on proposed districts in their neighborhoods. Thank you.
Kathy?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for that. And I think that there's a larger issue, I think, about Glendale's website and keeping things up to date in general, but our purview is historic preservation. And I think this ties into what Bob Nixon was saying about transparency, because, and I do think, this is not Mr. Platt's job, but I think how hard is it to post a map and the names of some districts? That's not difficult to do. And so I think that's a very good point. If you're looking to buy into a neighborhood and it's not yet a historic district, but it could be, and your property could be within it, that's something that you want to know, and it's not something that you would be required to disclose.
If it's not been told to you. Yeah, like just to pick up on what you're saying, the conversation we were having before, the question is existing or pending historic districts. If you're saying you don't even know if you're in a pending historic district and you say no to that question and it turns out you are, and your buyer relied on your information saying no, and you tried to find it and you couldn't find it. So it does set up a lot of potential liability for people. So it is very important that these.
I have a question. At what point does a district become a pending historic district? At what point is that term introduced?
After its first meeting with HPC.
And
So-
after that meeting, but after the meeting where we recommend that it continue moving forward, right?
It's a combined community meeting and HPC hearing under the new streamlining process. So we haven't done it yet, but we will.
So presumably by the time a district is pending, the survey's been done and its property boundary's been defined?
Before we get too specific, let me just jump back and give you a quick update on where things are. So thank you, Mr. Durham. Based on Mr. Durham's comments in part, but also knowledge that we've had for a long time that the website is a mess and wasn't up to date, we've completed phase 1 of the work to update the website. There are maps for every designated district up online. I wish I had checked before the hearing. There's other information for each of the existing historic districts. It's correct that we don't have Bellhurst up there. That's going to be part of phase 2 because before we do, we've been given direction from council on how to do outreach for the future streamlined districts. We're going to take the outreach component of that, not the actual outreach structure or designation structure, and put a lot more information up about Bellhurst. We are not going to put information up about districts that have only been submitted through application. We're only going to put information up once those are pending districts, because we would falsely be anticipating that the commission is going to approve moving forward with that district and that no appeal is going to be filed on that decision. So that would just be, I think, a legal mistake. On our map of historic properties in Glendale, all of the potential districts that were identified in the South Glendale survey are on that map, and all potential districts identified. So it's kind of a funny thing, but those were vetted by HPC, by City Council, and through a consultant's work, where an application coming in from the community is just a community saying, we love our neighborhood, we'd like to be a district. Once we get things moving, that process hopefully will start happening faster, where we can move to get the pending status. And that's one of our updates tonight that we'll be talking about, so I don't want to jump the gun on that. But we're very aware that the website is not completely up to date. I don't know that we're going to go back to the old days. We used to put, every PowerPoint presentation from each meeting, which got repetitive from meeting to meeting. We didn't get hits on those pages. It was a lot of effort, so I'm not sure where that's going to go, especially now that everything's archived easily on GTV6 and on YouTube. So it's going to be a balance between what we used to have and what we're going to have, but we will have a really good section for people living in districts that are under consideration that's going to have all the materials, including the new brochure and other materials that are going to be, it's like a one-stop shopping place that we're going to be able to put a link to in our outreach information, and then people will be able to grab the district guidelines, the brochure, the Historic District Handbook, all of the things that we've traditionally given out.
Great.
And they'll all be translated if we follow through on the council's direction. But that's going to be kind of a, well, we just haven't done that yet, and we can't use Google Translate, so.
Darn.
I have a question. Are the districts already defined, or do they get defined when they go through the application, the historic district application?
What do you mean by defined?
The application includes the definition, the boundaries, generally, right? When they
Well,
apply.
the applicants propose a boundary that's not set in stone, and both staff, the commission, and the consultant can ultimately either say that's a great boundary or suggest another boundary. So that's
Right.
part of the process as we review it.
That, what Commissioner Head just mentioned is what I was trying to ask about. I was basically trying to get to the point of, is a pending district, has the boundary been finalized in a pending district?
No,
Okay.
it's a preliminary district boundary.
Okay. Moving on from oral communications. Any board or commissioner comments? Anyone? Want to say anything? Bye, guys.
I'm going to take Jay up on his invitation to welcome Jeffrey and to say how happy I am to see you here. And Alan mentioned that he had your book on Paul Evans. I have the Wallace Neff book.
Y'all can swap.
And for those of you who don't know, Jeffrey is an expert particularly in modern architecture and design, and you're a great addition.
You can also let Jeffrey introduce himself if you'd like.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And you live in a registered property, don't you?
I do. Actually, this is the second Glendale historic property that I've lived in.
Great.
So I've gone through the Mills Act application process twice, and it's a great opportunity to be on this side of the situation, of going through that process, and I'm hoping that that perspective will allow me to contribute and participate in the discussions that come up.
Great. Well, it's nice to have you. It's nice to have a full dais again. Anyone else?
I would just like to welcome Commissioner Head also. I feel like, did we meet each other on the Modern Committee back in the late 90s? So I've known you a
Yes.
long time.
Yes, it's true.
So
Thank you.
Commissioner Head's been involved in historic preservation for a matter of decades now.
Yeah, thank you.
Quite experienced.
It's been a long time coming, it sounds like. Well, it's nice to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we
I
have
do
a
wanna-
strong ModCom contingent here now, so.
Yeah.
I do want to commend
Daniel.
I do want to commend staff on the delivery of the Living with History Historic District Guide booklet that I received in the mail because I live in a historic district. So yes, this year we're very excited about it. It was many years in the making. So if you live in a historic district and haven't received one of these, contact one of us or contact Jay. It's got a lot of great information about things to do and know about living in a district and what to consider if you want to make changes and things to your property. So good job, Jay, getting that out.
Cool, thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to old business. Thank you for your patience. Item 6A, 1730 Grandview Avenue, review of a two-story addition. This item was continued from the HPC hearing of October 19th, 2023. We will start with staff's presentation.
Okay. So here we are looking at 1730 Grandview Avenue. It's on the northeast corner of Grandview and Crestview, saying from memory. This is a proposal to add a two-story addition at the rear of the house. The second story will be visible from both streets that were, both of the streets that the house faces. The existing house is 1,029 square feet. The addition, the existing house is 1,638 square feet. The addition will be for 1,029 square feet. We're in the R1 Historic District Zone. So the house is under height, meets all zoning code, meets the FAR for the area. So the commission's purview tonight is to consider the design of the addition, whether it's appropriate to this house, whether it's appropriate in this district, and to discuss that. So I have a number of slides just to walk you through the project. First, I'll introduce you to the house itself. It's a minimal traditional house with a little bit of Tudor kind of influence. Stucco wood siding in the gables, a couple of bay windows, relatively modest in terms of architectural detailing. Relatively steeply pitched roof, several gables facing the street in the rear. Here's some better views before the hedges were built and the lighting was good. This is great Google Street View history, lets us see things more clearly sometimes. You see there's a two-story house on the left, and I believe the house to the right is 2 stories also, or it has a high roof, but it looks like there's some dormers up there. So a detached garage facing Crestview. Here's a view of the rear of the property. I'll just preview from the street. You're going to see some of the roof of the addition over on the left side. It's going to be pushed behind the main ridge line of the primary roof, the horizontal ridge line that's parallel to Grandview. From the rear, it will be quite visible over through the backyard and across the driveway. Here is the rear facade. The section of the house on the left will not be impacted by the addition, but the addition will rise from the right-hand wall that you see there, or the wall with the garden shed on the right-hand picture. The new wall will rise at that point, and the second story will start kind of at the eave line there. Going to the drawings, I just kind of put all the drawings up here that you got in your package. I highlighted a few things to make it a little more clear. The actual demolition of the existing house in terms of the walls is relatively limited to the highlight in red at the right-hand picture. Here's the floor plan that I tried to align so you can see how the second floor kind of fits into the first floor plan. And you'll note when we look at the other drawings that you see these are offset, and if you follow this line across, I was going to draw a line here, but I thought it might get confusing. If you follow this across, you see that part of the second floor of the addition cantilevers into the backyard over the first floor. So this area here is a new addition at the first level, and then the entire right-hand picture is the second floor portion of the addition. Here are elevations showing the existing condition. We worked hard to get the elevations as correct as possible. There are still, to be honest, a few minor things. So if you notice those, it's not uncommon to have errors on drawings before they go to a hearing. I don't think any of these are major enough. They're really on the existing portion of the house. So we didn't want to hold up the hearing any longer. And here's where we start seeing the addition in place. As I mentioned, if you look at the lower right image, that's what the street view would look like, where we're not seeing the walls of the addition, we're seeing the roof. And then on the left side, this is the Crestview elevation, and you can see how the roof is pushed back from the main roof line. So what looks like a dramatic, overbearing form on the lower picture will actually be sloping backwards, and its highest point will be a number of feet from the ridgeline of the existing one-story part of the house. Here are the two other facades. The north facade on the left, or on the top, is the side facade. It's close to the neighbor. It won't have a major impact when viewed from the street. It's not super visible. And then the right-hand image shows the rear elevation. In elevation, it compresses the addition so you don't see it in the form that you will. We have a 3D rendering coming up in another slide or two. I highlighted the roof plan just so you get a sense of where the second floor roof is in relation. And because they used the black pochette for the shingles on the roof, I highlighted in blue the ridge lines of the existing roof just to give you a sense of where things are placed. Here's that 3D image. It's a little hard to read. Well, it's pretty clear. Here's the cantilever here. The building will also span between this is the new first floor here. This is an existing notch in the rear facade. A new wall will be built right up against this wall where the second floor is. So the second floor is basically going to be rising in plane with this wall, but of course it's set in a little bit. So this existing roof form will remain, but this is the piece of the project that is most concerning to staff in terms of its impact on the volumes of the existing house. Here are some section drawings. We can come back to these if you have questions that they need to be referenced. I don't have much to say about them. The window schedule, I'll just be blunt, is a little bit of a mess. We put a condition in. I don't think the architect thought through the proposed windows on the addition as well as they could have, given the limitations of new windows that are manufactured. So we can talk about that, and you can comment on the windows. The goal is to have the new windows look very close to the wood windows that are on the house, and the applicant and the architect can fill you in on what material is being used for these windows, because I've heard a couple of different things. I think the final proposal was for fiberglass. Do you? No, I shouldn't have looked at you. Yeah, you can't talk yet. Sorry, I made you do that. So that's the end of the visual presentation. Staff is recommending approval. We went through an analysis through the Secretary Standards and the design guidelines, which I can either go through, that's in the staff report, or you can ask questions about it if you have them later on. But we're recommending 3 conditions. The primary is that the second floor be reduced in size, and I'll go back to the floor plan to give you a sense of what we're hoping for. The Historic District guidelines acknowledge that second floors may be added at some point to one-story houses in historic districts. The guidance is to push those as far away from street facades and street facing volumes of the houses as possible. I think that this portion, the upper portion that you see here, which contains 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, could fit into that. I'm concerned that this, and when we go to the floor plan, so we have a bedroom / nursery with a large storage room here. What my vision is in that recommendation is to basically cut this right-hand rectangle off, allowing the stairs, a hallway, 2 bedrooms, and a Jack and Jill bathroom. What that would do is reduce, from the street, it would cut off part of the roof that you see visible above the existing roof line. And from, let's go to the 3D, I think that's better. It would take off a chunk of this area. There would still be some need for the hallway to come across here, and that would probably extend. There's a small cantilever right now on the south side of the addition, the second floor. It would probably need to have a deeper cantilever to get that done. But that, I think, would help this volume here, this low 1-story volume that's relatively narrow, which means its ridgeline isn't incredibly high because it doesn't have a large area to span. Help this mass from kind of bearing on top of that. I should note that the owner and the architect originally came to us with a much more ambitious scope in terms of the impact of the second floor on both the front facade and the side facade. And through our guidance, kind of pulled it back to where it is today. But this is the proposal they would like to have reviewed tonight to meet their family's needs. Going back to the conditions, I left it as a refine the design of the windows at the addition to be consistent with the existing windows while also reflecting the reality of the types of windows that are installed today. Because I think coming close to looking like the existing windows is appropriate. The wood windows in place, I don't think are original, but they are old. They have older hardware. They've been there for some time, decades, I would say, and they seem fine for the house. And then the final condition is to provide some sort of visual means of support to that cantilevered portion. I was particularly focused on this part because this is really what will be seen from the street. You'll see this a little bit. And by visual means of support, we've done this at DRB on a number of projects. I don't think anything's come to council, to the commission. But it could be a couple of things. It could be beam ends. What you do is you put a board at the base of the wall here that looks like a beam, and then you put corbels coming out, and you can stagger the corbels so that they kind of are smaller, give a visual means of support. If this cantilever is a little too big, you could even give a diagonal bracket to give it a little sense that something is holding it up instead of this modern contrivance of the cantilever that you wouldn't see on traditionally styled houses. I threw in the alternative that, and this would take up a little more space in their backyard, and this backyard isn't huge, but it could also have just columns coming down with the faux beams kind of giving it the visual support. So those are the three conditions that we're recommending, and that's the end of the presentation.
Okay, before I open up for public hearing, do we have any specific questions about the report? Not so much comments on the design or anything yet, but just questions of Jay. Kathy?
I had one question, Jay. Can you go back to the slide, one of the slides that shows maybe the 3D one? I had a really hard time orienting myself in the plans because they just kept, there was no north, until you got to the, yeah, it was just very difficult. Where is the storage?
It's this section to the west. It's this area here.
Okay,
And then this would be the nursery/bedroom, and then part of this is the hallway that
Okay.
leads to the bedroom. So the hallway you have to get to the second
Sure.
bedroom back here if you're,
and so the staircase would be parallel to Grandview.
would be perpendicular to Grandview. So let me go to the floor plan. This is the Grandview facade.
Right.
Here's the staircase.
Oh, wait,
The staircase
And then the staircase continues to the second
I
floor.
thought the side on the left was the Grandview.
No.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, you're right, yeah. I
Yeah,
see
I'm
the
sorry.
entrance.
I should have put a north arrow on this
Yeah.
just for the
No,
slide, but it's not on the
parallel
drawings.
to Grandview. Grandview's just on the other. Isn't that
Grandview's down here. You picture this line down here is Grandview. This is Crestview.
I thought
This
Crest-
is
I thought I thought the front entrance was on Grandview.
It's kind of at the corner.
faces Crestview.
There's a porch right at the corner. Let me go back to the photo to help. So here's the entrance.
Right.
This is the Grandview facade, which is the shorter of the two facades, and then Crestview.
Oh, right, I'm sorry, when I went to look at it today, I ended up getting turned around. Yes, okay. That's, yeah, I was flipping the streets. Okay,
All right,
yes.
good. Any other questions, Nick?
I have just one question. You would like the nursery smaller so that roof line is larger, not so steep,
No.
or wider or more?
The staff recommendation has a couple of reasons behind it. The primary reason is, let me see the best way to do it. Here we go. This volume here is where the nursery and the storage area are. This, to me, is coming very close to the street facade, although it is set back. So I don't want to, it's not the most overbearing volume I've ever seen, but it is probably a little more than I would be comfortable with to follow the district guidelines. So what we're proposing is that the nursery and storage room be eliminated from the proposal, maintaining the 2 bedrooms. What happens if that does happen is that this gable, I'm presuming, and I haven't talked to the architect about this, to accommodate the hallway, at least part of this wall is going to come out a little further to the south, which means that this ridge line, as you expand the walls on a roof, the ridge line gets higher and higher the more wide the volume that it's covering is. But I don't think it would ever go over this ridge line. So we wouldn't want to see anything poking over this ridge line. The other good thing, if that were reduced, is that the amount of roof that you see in this image, which of course doesn't represent the 3D reality, but it is taking up, over 3/4, I would say, of the facade as seen from Grandview. It would reduce it by probably 12 feet or so. So there would just be less roof visible from this angle.
And before you leave that,
Does that help, Mr. Dooley?
Yes, I thought you were going to push it back so you see less from the street.
Yeah, well,
And
that's
then-
part of the goal.
It would give more of a roof line, because right now it's up against the roof line.
Let me go to
So
the
that
roof
3D
plan and see
image.
if that helps. Here's the roof plan. So if we were doing this, we would be cutting off the lower part of this rectangle at the bottom. If you see, follow my
Yeah.
cursor, it would be cutting off about that much
And
of
then
this, which
that
would
blue
let
arrow
this.
roof line, that would go,
that's going to stay
that's
exactly.
going to stay exactly
This
as
is
it is.
existing, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, it's not an arrow. What it's trying to indicate is that it's a hipped roof that dies into the
Right, so
bigger
it
hipped
goes like
roof,
this.
yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, go for it. So, can you go back to the 3D?
Yeah.
So, if it was to cut off like you're suggesting, will it still appear the same on the south facade? It'll just be pushed back towards that? Will that look the same? That
Yeah, the same.
the window
the
essentially
same
and all that?
Gable would be there. It would just be set back, basically.
But it would still come forward a little bit from.
Yeah, this
other
this
one.
volume would still be the principal volume, and the part of the back would still be subordinate to that. I just don't know, depending on how wide they'd have to make that to get the hallway in there. I can't predict how tall how high the ridge would go. I think it would still be subordinate, though.
But we would still have a jog, so to speak.
Yeah, there would be two roof volumes. This is called a cross gable roof, so there would still be a cross gable roof, but a smaller primary gable, I guess.
So I guess I'm kind of I'm curious though, because you said that roof. Whoop, your arrow was almost on it. Not the one, the other roof line. You said that one's going to shift a little bit because the wall it's supporting it is going to move.
I'm predicting that this part of this wall, at least, and it could be just the area. Let's go to the floor plan. We can get a better sense. Whoops. Okay, so we have to get access to this. This area, these are generous bedrooms they're not huge, but there's room to play if you needed to or wanted to. It's a big closet, et cetera. The stairs are kind of a given the floor plan downstairs. Stairs are hard to move when we're thinking about how to do this.
Makes sense.
There could be ways to do it. You could do an L stair instead of a straight run stair, but I don't know that we'd gain much with that here. So the issue is, if we're cutting this off, we still need to have this hallway access up to the door, and then it can die here. Some of that, I believe, is going to be still in the area
Yeah. You can see
here.
it from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. So this roof is probably going to poke out, let's just say right here. And so we're cutting off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I
that other
can't-
one though doesn't really need to change.
Yeah, we don't have enough dimensions on these drawings. Oh, actually, does anyone have this on paper? Or?
I do, yeah.
We'd be losing at least this dimension, which I can't read on the screen.
9 feet, 7
Yeah.
inches.
So I picture, and we probably could lose 10 feet or so, especially if the bedrooms were compressed a little bit.
So you're thinking of compressing the bedroom wall.
No, I didn't make that a condition. I like giving people, this is someone's house
Right.
and they want to live in a certain way, and I think we have to respect that. We're asking for a give here, and maybe we don't have to get everything if it's a minor change. I just mentioned that to remind you. I know design review isn't something that the commission has done a lot over the time we've been together, so just what kind of options there are.
Okay. And then is there, in a minimal traditional style, is there much precedent out there or anything in the guidelines about a cantilever?
Cantilever is an unusual feature for a traditionally styled house of any kind. Spanish houses have cantilevers, usually shallow ones, that are usually bracketed with corbels or beam ends or something. Sometimes they're deeper than you'd expect. Tudor houses sometimes have a little, but not usually. Colonial revivals that are in the medieval style often have a second floor that cantilevers about a foot off the lower facade, but that's not much. So I'd say no. That's why I put the condition in, since this is quite visible from the street. And it's kind of playing a visual trick. It's, that's why I call it visual support instead of literal physical support.
Okay.
But sorry, thank you. But leaving aside the cantilever and the question of the structural feat of having a second story project over the first story, just that projection would be unusual for I know most minimal traditionals are one story.
Yeah, that was another.
But to have a second story that projects over, supported or not, would not be a typical.
For a two-story house, you often have a second floor that projects over what creates a covered patio below it.
For this style, minimal traditional?
We don't have a ton of two-story minimal traditionals, but on this note, this came up in the last time we looked at a second-story addition, and there was discussion about on a ranch house, and that was kind of a Tudor ranch, where we're calling this a minimal traditional with Tudor influence. I don't know that we as a city want to be telling people, because you have a certain style house, you can't get that second story. I think we should be trying to get second stories when they're approvable to, if it doesn't start screaming, I'm no longer a ranch house. If someone came in with a second story that was 80% of the first floor's square footage, I would say that destroys the concept of a ranch house. The one we looked at previously was much smaller than what we're looking at now and was well positioned. There were other reasons why staff was less reluctant to recommend that one. There was a whole laundry list of issues there. This house doesn't have those issues. So it's within the commission's purview to say we don't want to see a second story on any minimal traditional, but I wouldn't recommend that. I think in terms of equal protection of homeowners in historic districts, it's a rough place for us to be standing and setting anything that could be precedential. And I know we usually say our decisions aren't precedent setting, but if we deny one property a second story because it's a minimal traditional or a ranch or whatever, and we let someone else do it the next round, that's not good for the city, I would say. So I would say our focus should be on massing and how the mass of the new addition impacts the house regardless of its style is my recommendation.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying,
sorry.
that one thing we should consider is a two-story that is not, the idea of having brackets or columns and if it weren't visible from the street, it wouldn't be an issue. Right. But I do think it's something that we should consider. It may be that this is the best alternative.
Well, I think that the cantilever and the owner and the architect could address this when the public hearing opens. This was originally pushed closer to Grandview and nipped over the primary ridgeline of the house. Their program, and we see they've got a little baby. I don't know what their family is going to be in 5 years, but they obviously are asking for 2 more bedrooms upstairs. If we got rid of the cantilever, this bedroom would still be potentially, I'm sorry, that's this first floor. This bedroom would really get squeezed into the point, and this bathroom, there's not a lot of play here. This closet, I'll admit, is a little generous, but the width of this bathroom, given its current layout, is not oversized in any way.
Okay.
So that's something to consider, but that's, and like I said, we've used the trick of the visual means of support in the past, and it works pretty well. And it's kind of funny because that's what a lot of existing shallower cantilevers on traditional Spanish properties, let's just say, those aren't real. Those are cantilevers, and the beam ends are fake. They're just tacked in there in most cases. So,
Before we go too much further down the path, I do want to open up the public hearing, and then we'll get into further discussion after that. So, we have one card for this item. Ahmad Hussein Khani. Did I say that right? Please correct me if I didn't. Welcome, Ahmad.
Welcome, good evening.
Thank you for coming.
Commissioners. My name is Ahmad Hussein Khani, and we purchased this house in 2017. And we love the house and the neighborhood. It's basically the thing that we were always looking for. And since 2017, we were just me and my wife. Right now, we are 2 people added to our family, 2 little angels added to our family.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we need more room for sure. My wife sometimes works from home, and we need a little place for being away from the kids, and she wants to work from the house too. So this is the need for the extra room and the plan that we did. The original plan was going to be very close towards the Crestview, which we talked with Jay and other planner that was working on our case, and so they decided, and we talked about it, it's better to go towards the backward, and it won't be more visible to the public passing by the Crestview. And regarding the facade, we're going to have the same look, same material, same basically gables, and the same windows ratio. Everything is going to be the same as possible. So if there's any questions, I can be answering. So.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions while he's up here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you have a question? Go ahead.
Growing family, the nursery, that's the concern right here. What do you anticipate the nursery becoming in 5 years or 6 years?
So we were hoping to have it as a play place for the kids. So it could be an area for them to play and like some sort of entertainment place for them.
Keep the toys
So
upstairs.
that was what we were planning.
Okay, like an entertainment room of some sort.
Some sort of.
Okay.
Daniel, did you have a question?
Just really quickly, the company that's designing this, you're not your own builder. You hired an architect to do
Yes.
this, right? Okay, got it. That's my only question right now.
The windows, you briefly mentioned that you would do their best to match them.
The size that we have right now on Grandview, it's the same size that I plan to purchase, and I sent the brochure of the windows previously to Jay. I don't know if you got to receive it or not, but the same size is selected, is 36 by 60, and it's going to be 2 windows that's going to be having 4-inch distance between them. So basically the same look is going to be on backward.
Okay.
Okay. And the materials,
Material is going to be wood with aluminum clad, so that's what I was hoping to get.
okay. Great. Anybody else?
And the windows right now that we have there, they won't be changed. They will be wood, same materials. We won't change them. Same
Existing windows.
things. The existing window, yeah,
Okay.
it's going to be the same.
And the shutters will remain.
And the shutter
Yeah.
is going to be the same. We won't touch that too.
I noticed that there was a new garage door is proposed, is that correct? I just saw, there's something of a garage door in the schedule, I was just wondering what,
No, it's the same thing.
yeah, as I mentioned, the window schedule is not what it could be, so we'll
Garage
work
door
to
is
fix
yeah,
that.
It's not
door,
very, it doesn't look very.
garage, flush panel. But
It's not the page she's looking at, Jay.
Yeah, I didn't put the door schedule up here
Yeah.
because most of that was interior
Door is
doors.
going to be the same too. The main door is a wooden door, it's six panel door, so it's going to be the same too. Nothing
Yeah,
will
leave that
change
alone.
that part of the.
okay, that, yeah, so it would just be restored, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely
Okay.
restoration.
Here
Because
is
if
like
you see
repainting
the house needs a lot of work, so
Yeah.
the old gables are rotten, and it needs a lot of work, so we have to take care of that too.
Yeah,
During that addition, basically.
I'm gonna guess this is an aluminum or steel door.
It's the
could be
same.
wood.
Is it wood?
It'll be probably painted, or we don't have any plan to do on
Okay,
painting.
good.
in the-
Yeah,
We'll just clean up the window schedule and the door schedule as,
okay.
whichever way this goes, we'll need to do that, so.
Because in the photos, it looked, yeah, it looked like peeling paint, but that could be different materials. But
Yeah, just,
Yeah, it's definitely discolored.
It's
Yeah,
It gets a
just
lot of
needs to paint.
sun on the south
Is it
facade,
wood?
so.
no, it's not.
It's not
Oh,
wood.
okay,
It's metal.
sorry, I thought you were
It's
saying it
metal.
was wood. Yeah, okay.
It's. I don't think that it has like any historic feature. To
Yeah,
that.
no,
No.
no.
not really.
It didn't look like wood, but then the way it had become discolored made me think maybe it is.
Now, the gables are another story, so that could be a condition.
Gables are wood, and
Yeah.
they're gonna stay the wood.
Is that a rough troweled stucco I'm seeing on the house? Or is it a smooth stucco? What am I,
I think it should be some sort of rough stucco.
Rough
It's not
stucco.
very smooth.
and that's going to be on the addition, it's going to be the same stucco?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Rough and smooth are very relative terms when it comes to stucco.
I guess
This
they are.
this
Easier
isn't a
to-
sand-finished
it's easier to
stucco.
make
This is a
to-
smoother stucco that has textural.
I'm just talking about troweled. If you trowel stucco, there's definitely a pattern to it.
it's not that deep pattern on
Uh-huh.
that, yeah. But there
Okay.
is some sort of pattern, but it's not very deep pattern. That's
Yeah.
like some,
Okay.
Okay. With that, we're going to close the public hearing. We might open it up again if we have more questions for you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Ahmad, your architect has not called in, is that a?
he's over the phone. If he probably hears us.
Oh, no, he needs to call in on our phone line.
He has a problem. He can call.
Yeah, it's right there, so.
If he calls in, if you're listening, please call in. We'll reopen the public hearing for you. In the meantime, I guess we will start deliberating. Who would like to go first? Kathy?
Well, I think I have another question.
for
Just because I went by the house and I was so grateful that it had been story pooled, because I think it really helps to be able to see the impact of the proposed second story. And I agree that it is too massive from the Crestview side. My question is, and I think I understand the logic of removing the bedroom, the nursery, and the storage unit. My question is, if there's going to be this jog out, it just wouldn't that look kind of strange for the hallway? Because my sense is that it's I think this is in part a response to you, Chris, is that you're still going to have a part that's sticking out over that existing first floor.
You're essentially going to have two cantilevers. You're going to have a
Right.
cantilever in the back and a cantilever
And
at
a
the
very
side.
short,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a cantilever
Yeah.
here, there will be cantilever here, there's also a small cantilever here,
Right,
as proposed.
which will get smaller because, or will that not be cantilevered, that
I
portion there?
believe that's, well, the nursery is directly above the office. I think that's a necessary cantilever to
Okay.
get to this door.
So it would be this slightly under 4-foot
Yeah,
projection.
again,
out.
if the closet were reduced, this door could come in, and then there could be a jog for the door going, for walking into the bedroom. But
Yeah, I
that
was-
wouldn't gain a lot. And I hear what you're saying about, let's look at the 3D
And
again.
it's more for something for people to consider. I'm,
Yeah. I don't think it would be unusual. Cross gable roofs are common roof form.
yeah,
Every so often, you just have a
4 foot.
smaller section than you have on the other side, or I think it's within the realm of this roof typology, I guess.
okay, thanks.
So if you could just leave that slide up. I understand the logic of the need for space and all of that. I think the design is a little funny because it looks like a whole minimal traditional house plopped on another one, like a little cottage just put on the top. I think Jay touched on some of my concerns looking at this. from this 3D view, which we could leave up here. I'm not so concerned about the one cantilever over the middle as the one that's projecting out more. And I think it just needs, especially at its bottom corners, a lot more attention than just an abstract stucco corner. And I'm glad that, Jay, that you brought up the need to sort of to deal with that, because otherwise that's just completely, utilitarian and almost hyper modern. But I think that there is a way to probably add some detailing from columns or whatnot, probably using cues from the porch or the porch of a lot of different minimal traditional houses that have columns, or some sort of wood lap at the bottom. There's probably minimal traditional detailing that could be borrowed from other sources to sort of soften that projection, which by the way is very visible. It seems like it's going to be very visible from Crestview. I walked around it the other day, and I could see it clearly from the driveway. But I think that to me is the primary. Aside from what Jay mentioned about reducing the mass toward Crestview, this is another issue, and I hope that we can help resolve this, because as it is right now, especially also from the north elevation, and I know the north elevation is not that visible, but it's still part of a minimal traditional house, and I think it's going to need some attention.
Yeah, the north elevation presents let me just show you what I was picturing. If you follow the cursor, I was picturing probably an 8-inch board, similar to a fascia board, just a flat board at the base of this section, returning here, because this is also a little bit of a cantilever, and then returning here. When we get to the north elevation, it presents a problem because what do? Do we keep it going across here? It's so invisible back here from the street, and our purview is really on the visible parts of these properties that our regular design guidelines for houses say if we're applying a facade material, it needs to wrap and terminate at logical locations. Sometimes we have to make a judgment call that just creates something weird in its own right. So I would stand by the recommendation to just do those three. Where did it go? Sorry. These three facades.
That's fine.
And then figure out whether, and then I guess the commission should weigh in whether you think columns are necessary, if you think brackets and corbels might be suitable. It does get a little funky because we have a bit of a cantilever here, but it's not like on a nice Spanish balcony where you have a 45-degree angle, kind of an outrigger coming out and supporting the corner. So I would probably keep it simple and just think in terms of, hey, someone from the street is going to see this, and what are they seeing?
Minimal traditionals have simple design elements. So if there were columns, they could be simple. Like even if it has to be, I mean, it could look like a painted wood post. I mean, I don't know if it could actually be a wood post or if it'd have to be metal. But the idea of that projection just dangling there and how visible that is going to be from the street seems like something that should be attended to somehow design-wise. How many feet are we looking at on that projection in terms of is that about?
I'm going to guess this is 5 or 6 feet.
6 feet. Yeah, it's noticeable.
It's a little long. If there was a beam end, I don't think it would need to come out all the way to the end. I would probably do a layering of corbels with one corbel and then a shorter one, and then probably still have a bracket. I don't think corbels that long make sense. The only reason I thought of the brackets as well as an option to the columns is they don't have a ton of backyard space, and so if you do think columns would be a better solution, I would just recommend reopening the hearing and just seeing if the owner has any concerns about that. But I don't think it's a huge deal when we look at the site plan. Where is the site plan? Oops. Oh, when we look at this, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't put the site plan in here. It's in the, oh, here it is, here we go. There's still a good amount. If you had 2 columns coming down here, you could still have a seating area here. You could have re-envision the bedroom. You could have sliding doors or French doors here that open to a set of steps that come down, or a shallow patio. I see some nice options that could work for the family and still work with columns.
And the columns could be very thin because a lot of minimal traditionals had very thin wood posts. They weren't massive or monumental. They don't have to take up a lot of space in terms of their footprint.
2 things. We have building and safety looking at it. What we'd rather avoid, if this were still a structural cantilever, then we wouldn't. Building and safety often wants to have diagonal members coming from the tops of columns, which does not work here. The other thing is they do have some fairly chunky columns at the front porch, and I think that would probably be a better model, as you mentioned earlier. But I wouldn't put 4x4s here.
Yeah, nothing too thin. But I mean, I wouldn't. You're right. But why? I have a question of why would building and safety get involved with the columns if they're not structurally necessary?
Well, that's the question. If they decided, hey, maybe we don't have to invest in the cantilever if we're putting columns here, then building and safety would be curious. If the columns are just decorative, then they wouldn't care. So.
Okay.
Anyone else? Jeffrey, do you have any comments? It's okay if you don't. It's your first meeting. Okay. So I want to make some comments. I do need to disclose that I do, with the neighbor to the north of this property, I do have an active listing agreement with that client. She's leasing out a property in Burbank that I'm helping her with. She and I have discussed this, but only in so much as giving her information where to look at online and how to present comments if she wanted to. The concern I have is that we don't have anything in the historic district guidelines that talk about cantilevers in particular. This house has 2 very prominent ones. And I'm afraid, if you don't mind bringing up that 3D again, that corner just feels it's going to be very, very messy. You've got the cantilever that points to the east. There's one to the south that is going to jog and project even further south and kind of cut that patio below it sort of in half. And to the point Daniel made earlier, it really does feel like we've just taken a little house and put it right on top of this other house. The unfortunate reality of this particular property is that it's a corner property, and so there's a lot of public right-of-way visibility, and that just it doesn't look appropriate to me. And the hard part is we don't have a lot of guidance, and we don't have a lot of precedent to pull from. We have to use sort of our instincts on this. And my instinct to me is telling me, if we're going to have some kind of cantilever, can there be fewer than the 2.5 that we're going to have? Can that lower floor be pulled, the lower floor bedroom or room be pulled further east into the backyard? Rather than columns, let's just pull that whole east wall back toward the garage into the yard more, make that lower floor larger so that at least that back wall is flat and not cantilevered. Maybe that would reduce the impact of the other cantilever. If we're eliminating the nursery and the storage room, the square footage FAR thing shouldn't be an issue. There's room to play with there. So not that one with that one. Yeah, pull that back so that it's at least flat.
You know, the issue there, and we'd have to do the math, but they're getting close to their FAR right now.
That's what I was saying. If we're eliminating the nursery and the storage room, presumably,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
they're gonna have some space to do that, to some additional square footage on the main floor to work with. My instinct says make the whole thing larger downstairs so there's no cantilever at all. But if a cantilever is something that we're just gonna have to accept,
Yeah,
removing some of it would be, removing one side of it, to me, would be appropriate.
I thought the floor plan's a little funny in terms of axes and access to the outside. I thought the same thing, that maybe this room could be extended over further to get rid of that cantilever. I hadn't thought about extending this room even further, but that's an option. And it's okay, depending on the commission's direction, we're recommending approval with conditions. If you have conditions like that, where it's explore these options, we're comfortable at staff level exploring those. especially if it's at the ground level where it's really not as impactful to the neighborhood. So that, but it would also be great to have a take on whether what they're proposing is acceptable to ultimately the majority of the group. So we can include that as part of the discussion when we start thinking about how
Yeah.
people are going to vote.
I mean, I still think that even if we did my suggestion, I feel like a cantilever that covers a third or so of that lower patio, right? So if they pull that back wall out, there's still kind of a funky jogged cantilever over that back porch.
On this side.
There's that cantilever plus that little bit that's left to accommodate the hallway. I'm having a hard time visualizing that. That also feels a little bit messy, but if that back wall is pulled out, maybe it's not as messy. Maybe it doesn't feel as sort of, this just feels very clumsy. It doesn't feel clean. It just doesn't feel like it matches well. It's just like two pieces of a puzzle that don't fit together.
Jay, I have a quick question for you. With what you were proposing, with what the city's proposing with reducing the massing over there, if that gets pushed back, off the south toward the north, is there going to be another dangling corner, just like there is? Is there suddenly like a second?
There would be, which is why I was picturing bringing the wall out. And that really is just dependent on whether you accept the idea of the visual support for the cantilever, which the more I'm thinking about it, columns are probably the way to go. Or if you're not comfortable with that, we could increase the square footage of this lower level to the point that even, like, what if it did have a foot or 18 inches of cantilever that we could just put some corbels under? Corbelling isn't out of the question for minimal traditional. Some minimal traditionals represent traditionals or period revival styles more fully than others, as you guys know. So that's a possibility.
Okay.
The one thing just to keep in mind, because, part of our job is, working with applicants to think about how they live and what's a desirable outcome. When I'm picturing the floor plan,
Yeah, let's look at that again.
this is really their only aperture from the main living areas to the rear. And if we start squeezing this area a lot, it may not be exactly what people are dreaming of. This extension here seems great to the point that it could even free up some space, say here, push the closets and the bedroom back. It could free up some space for a play area on the first floor near the master bedroom. Maybe that's desirable. So.
Not if you're a parent, you want to play right next to your bathroom.
Did you have another comment, Daniel?
Nothing, I was just thinking.
I like what you're saying about the possibility of pushing as I understand it, what you're saying is to possibly allow more of a projection at the ground floor. Is that toward the east into the yard?
Yeah, just so that back wall is flat.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pull
Yeah.
out that back wall. To
I think
flatten it
I
out.
like that idea quite much. My only concern would be if the applicant, they're losing some of their backyard space, but
Yeah, we'll open that up.
The only thing they're losing is the part that's covered by the cantilever.
Got it.
So it's not like
Okay.
open to the sky, let's
Sure.
hang out in the backyard. so.
right.
Well, presumably it would be a little more than that, because it wouldn't just be flush as one wall, would it?
Well, I think that's where Chris was going.
Flush. I mean, it was, houses they have that kind of.
But what that would do, that would have the benefit of not having the monopoly house sitting on top of the house. It would, that two-story wall, which we avoid when those are facing neighbors, but at rear facades were much, I'm speaking DRB more than HPC. Those two-story volumes at the rear don't really have a huge impact on neighbors because there's so much distance between them. So that would be one way to, I think, integrate this a little better.
I mean, I still have concerns about the other cantilever. I mean, I'm imagining standing on that patio and looking up and seeing this kind of I'm trying to visualize it, but it just seems very clunky
If you look
still.
at this cantilever, I'm sorry, I should have this memorized by now. This cantilever here is really kind of a bridge, even between these two.
Yeah.
And I think putting that fascia, the board, the baseboard across that, and maybe, depending on where the walls are, putting a corbel on one side or the other, or both sides ideally, could work. But I think even if it were just here, and then this wall came out, and we still had a little bit of a cantilever here with
in your-
some corbels underneath it, and there, I don't think we'd want the baseboard, because then it would, although it could serve, sometimes we call it a belly band between the first and second floor, which helps break up the two-storyness of a two-story wall. So we could still, if this wall came out flush here, have the belly band run here, here, and here.
You're talking about that, sorry to interrupt, but that part that you just went across isn't going to be that long. We're pushing that back, remember?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. Oh, it's not a bridge anymore, forgive
It's
me.
not a
Yeah,
bridge anymore,
forgive
and
me.
it's even actually a bit more awkward to me when it's not a bridge.
Yeah, well, depending on your direction, you could explore losing one of the four. They have a four-leaf folding glass door right now. I think losing one of those would probably accommodate the hallway. They could also, depending on your direction, because the bedrooms are a little deep, I can picture a very nicely furnished, functional bedroom here, especially if these are kids' bedrooms, that cuts 3 feet off of this dimension here. And we're still going to have the hall sticking out in space. I don't know that that's avoidable. But it's also, when I was picturing this from the street, this was really the area that kind of hit me the hardest. These other cantilevers aren't as deep, aren't as obviously contemporary looking.
I actually agree with Jay on that, because I went to look at it the other night, the sticks, and I feel like a lot of the other cantilevers may not be as readily visible from the street. They may be somewhat visible, but I don't think they're going to really stand out the way that the one is. I think the one, you could drive on Crestview and you're clearly going to see that, because it's open. You could see it. You could clearly see it off Crestview, and it didn't even occur to me to think about the other cantilevers. You have a good point, but that I think the main issue in terms of street visibility, in my opinion, is that larger projection. And doing something about that, whether it's like you said, bringing out the bottom floor more, which I think should be something we asked to have explored, or some of the detailing that Jay's talking about or whatnot. But yeah, it is with what Jay's proposing, it will create another corner. But I don't know how visible that other corner will be from the street. It'll be odd if you're standing in the backyard. But I don't know how visible that corner is going to be, because the original part of the house that runs along Crestview, I think it's going to obscure it from a lot of angles, and then there's trees and stuff.
From the east, it will be visible, clearly, to me. The question is, how much does that matter? So,
Do you want to ask the homeowner a question? Okay. We'd like to open the public hearing and invite you back up, Mr. Homeowner. I'm sorry. I have it here. Ahmad, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. Welcome back. We have a question for you.
Okay, so about the $64,000 question, first one, would you feel comfortable moving out the first floor flush with your cantilever? So there's no cantilever?
If the nursery is going to be removed, so the best option would be that. So that part on the right-hand side should have wider side, and we remove the cantilever and make it like flat, and this flat. But you need to increase the width of that part. So that's what Chris offered.
Okay.
So if the problem is the cantilever, so we can do that.
Okay.
And the nursery, so probably is the staff suggestion that has to be addressed too.
Okay.
right now, the drawing shows these two walls lining up.
Yeah.
So I don't,
I think we have around 16 feet, 15 feet in that middle part. So it's like if you remove, like if you go 4 feet, the width of the staircase probably that can cover that too.
we'll need to confirm with the architect who has called in, so this
great.
might be a good time.
Oh, great, public hearing is open.
Okay. Mr. Karami, you're live with the Historic Preservation Commission. Mr. Karami, you're live with HPC.
Hi, Jay, and welcome to the committee member.
Yeah, go ahead.
We can hear you.
Yeah, if you could speak a little more loudly, that would be helpful.
Okay, so first thing I wanted to mention was that a lot of the design decisions, like not having any visual support, we did that intentionally so that we could get feedback from the committee. We didn't want to add too much design accent to the building to the point that it would create a whole separate conversation. So we wanted to get your feedback and see what would be the appropriate approach for addressing that issue. And as far as that cantilever generally and pushing that wall out to make the wall flush with each other, that's also possible. And then that bedroom being in that corner, we can maybe adjust the closet sizes and add that playroom to the first floor and still have a decent sized bedroom on that corner with the wall pushed out. For the stairs, there was a comment about the roof bridge getting affected. That's not going to be a problem to take out the nursery and the storage. It's essentially just going to be as if you squeeze that wall in. If you look at the section sheet, you can kind of see how the relation between that staircase going up to the second floor would be. So that's not going to be a problem as far as the aesthetic and what it would look like, especially from the crest view. You also had a comment about removing one of the glass doors and kind of bringing that whole corner that would be the bottom of the staircase down. That's also possible, and especially with losing that nursery and that storage room, I think we'll have enough square footage to push that wall back, and that corner that comes down kind of creates another angle in the first floor, but it looks exactly as it is now, just a little larger, which I think to the untrained eye is not going to be that much of a drastic change just passing by the building. So all of your comments are doable, and we are not hard set on any of the aesthetics as it is. Just wanted to show that whatever we bang on at the end, it's going to be 100% following the same material, design, and general look of the building as it exists.
That's great.
Okay, let's see if there are any questions for you from the commissioners.
That's great. Does anybody have any questions for the architect? Okay, if you don't mind staying on the phone, do you have a question? Sorry, one question.
Just one question. So if I'm looking at the current slide Jay has projected here, if you're watching on TV with us, I'm looking at the lower right, the backyard, and you're okay with removing one of the glass doors so the cantilever on the left would not be as large?
Yes.
And will we have a post there? Are you okay with a post, or what would you want?
Can I have a whole wall if you have?
We can hide that in the wall and go through it and refine it so that it's not just going to be a jarring, object sticking out.
Yeah. This drawing, as I'm looking at it now, unfortunately, I don't think is accurate.
Yeah, it's inaccurate. I was just going to ask.
But if we have a design goal, we can make sure that we get, we're going to need accurate drawings at the end of the day, so.
So I was going to say, if you don't mind staying on the phone, we're going to close the public hearing now, but there might be a reason for us to reach back out to you. Do you mind waiting online?
Okay, I'll put you back on hold.
Quick,
Yes, make another comment. Go ahead.
My official title is Design Professional Level 3. I'm a part of the architectural team, and the title of architect is reserved for someone who holds a current license. I'm in the process, but I don't have my license yet.
Thank you very much.
Minutes to reflect that.
Thank you very much for clarifying that.
Yeah, that's,
No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll be
So I'm
on
going
the
to, okay, thanks for holding on for us. So I'm going to close the public hearing. Jay, okay, so let's look at this for a second. The bottom right corner does not have the cantilever projection heading towards the south.
right. I think there is something that would need to be here if we go back to the floor plan. This second floor is wider than this.
Is it?
So, yeah, the dimension is 14 something here, 15 something here. It's a little bit. That's why that cantilever wasn't plaguing me. It's a relatively modest one. We still will have some deeper cantilever back here to accommodate the hallway. And that's basically just a geometry issue to see what happens there, and whether you agree with Mr. Paul's idea that this may not be as critical as getting rid of this one, because this will start blending in, the shadow lines won't be as prominent.
I don't know that I'm on the same page with him on that, but yeah, I mean, I think it's probably will be a bit more visible than we think. So
yeah, no, I think I'm 100% it will be visible.
Yeah.
So.
So the concern that I'm still having is, okay, so first of all, how far off from the FAR, or how close are they to the FAR with the current design?
I think they're at 29+%. I don't have the
Okay, I see it here, subject property, it's 0.29, okay.
0.30 is the limit, so.
We have closed the public hearing. If you want to sit, you can, but you're welcome to stay there, if you want to be more comfortable. So in an attempt to eliminate, can you go back to the rear projection, not the 3D? That we were looking at a minute ago, that it's potentially inaccurate. Okay, so imagine, if you will, everyone, looking at the back of this house now, that what Jay has referred to now as the bridge is essentially going to be cut off either if not in half, about 3/4 back. So there's going to be a projection, looking at it from here, which if we were to just take a step maybe 20 feet to the left, we're standing on the sidewalk. So there's a good chance we'll be able to see this back corner. So this projection here is not going to be a bridge. It's not going to connect to the house. It's going to just sort of float in space there, which that seems a little jarring to me, and I get your position of moving it back. This all started essentially because you feel like that needs to move away from Crestview because it's too imposing, right?
Yeah.
I think in doing so, we're not necessarily creating a situation that isn't also awkward and clunky and uncomfortable.
But it's in the detail aspect rather than in the overt massing that everyone sees aspect of the design.
Can you go call up a south elevation? There's a north and east right now. Is there a south?
While we're on this, just one thought regarding what Chris is talking about. It seems there's consensus, I believe, to bump out this portion to have a flush 2-story volume back here. Since we think this drawing is inaccurate and there's probably a vertical line that needs to be somewhere over here, the master could also be extended in this direction, which is why I mentioned the idea of how does that impact the life inside the house, which isn't your primary concern, but you're allowed to let it influence your design review decision-making. So we would probably lose this, if these are 4 panels of door, it would probably be closer to 3 panels of door, depending on dimensions. And so that's just something to consider. But Daniel, you wanted to see this elevation?
Yeah, okay. So the historic massing of the south elevation at the far right, like toward the east, do we have a sense of how far that existing massing projects beyond where the new construction is going to be between the like in the middle portion? So I'm not between the crazy projection and the historic era south elevation, with where some of these other cantilevers may be, how far are they recessed west behind that historic south massing?
If I'm reading this correctly, it's going to be 4.5 feet, maybe 5.
4.5 feet, okay.
I think this line establishes that.
I see.
This looks like about
Okay.
4+ feet. So.
So just in answer to the question about those 4 doors, it looks like the difference is a foot. between the bedroom on the, the bedroom on the ground floor and the bedroom on the top floor. So if that were pushed out by 1 foot.
It would look like the drawing, essentially. It'd be a little bit wider, but
Well,
it
and
would be flush.
You would, I mean, I don't, so that would go from, instead of a 13-foot, 10-inch opening with the 4 doors, it would go to 12 feet, 10 inches, which does not seem like a huge difference to me.
No, not at all.
So perhaps
Here's-
that's the way to address.
So here's,
Well, I think, well, we're talking about, it's not just the bedroom projection, but also the funky portion of this hallway that's going to be sticking out.
so
Oh, right.
here's what this is something I would like for staff to consider and work on the applicant with. So what's going to happen now is if they pull out that ground floor master bedroom, that patio is going to become a bit more cavernous because there's going to be that much more depth to it. So it's going to be very tight in terms of the FAR, but what I think could potentially look okay and not quite as sort of clunky would be to not only pull the master bedroom back, but also pull it towards Crestview to make that also flush,
The whole wall.
the whole wall. And then also on the main floor, those double doors, pull those out so that they're in line with, if you go to the 3D, we could probably see it better, so that they're in line with this bridge projection as well. I'm hopeful that there's enough room, removing the nursery, portions of the nursery and the storage, that we can just eliminate these overhangs, these overhangs altogether.
So we're talking about taking this wall of glass,
Yeah,
bringing it
moving
out
it.
here. Well, very, very few property owners are unhappy about having more livable space on their main living floor. So I think that's definitely a good idea. We have a decent amount of floor area to play with. If you visualize transferring this rectangle
Yeah.
into these 2 new rectangles, I think we're going to be okay. It does, if I were the owners and designers, I would reconsider this layout, which is already a little weird the way it's presented, but in not a bad way, but just in a functionality way. This space right here doesn't have a lot of usable area. It's kind of dead floor space. Pulling this out further could make it more usable. So
And that would take care if that got pushed out and then the
I think
bedroom
then the
got pushed
hallway,
out,
the hallway
then you're
is
done with the
supported.
cantilevers.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great idea, Chris, and I think
Expand
that
everything out to fill
could work if the math works. So
The only concern I would still have with it is going back to the 3D rendering, you have this sort of facade now, the bridge, you've cut the bridge in half, and you've got kind of this weird stepped back facade, and this, you're standing in the patio and you're looking, I mean, at least it's solid walls all the way up, but you've got this gap in the roof that seems weird.
The only trick will be what to do with that roof here.
Yeah.
I would probably recommend a shed, a narrow shed that just comes down. It's going to be completely hidden by this existing roof, but that will accommodate drainage. You don't have to do a flat roof, which a lot of people, a flat roof could also work there, but people don't love the flat roof.
Yeah.
So
I think that roof that's going down would just continue down underneath those windows at an angle. Right?
which
So
one?
if you push that bridge back,
Right.
the side of the roof that's facing east that's up against, that would just continue down past those windows and
I
as
thought,
an angle.
well, I was picturing, tell me if I'm wrong, I thought that this little corner of door that we see here is going to come out
It is.
right
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
But this is only going to be
Right.
accommodating the hall. So there's going to be a notch here that we have to deal with. And that's where I'm picturing the long shed roof, like
Continues
just
the angle down.
a little water slide for the kids when they get older.
Yes.
So your proposal is not to have one wall that runs across, one even wall that runs across the entire first floor.
Along the back?
Yeah.
No, there would still be
That's
that
it. There's
little
still that
indented
recess.
patio and
Okay.
everything. Yeah, yeah. But the indention would go to where the,
Just to where the hallway ends.
yeah, where the hallway ends, basically.
And then, so the hallway, let's say the hallway Basically, this line here corresponds to where the hallway is going to end because that's the stairway. So the hallway is going to end wherever this door, where this is. So this section, as this is pushed out, is going to need to have some kind of roof over it. And that's where this shed roof would probably be the best solution.
I have a question. By pushing it out, there are two windows that get lost, right?
But we're also pushing out this, so these two windows will get pushed closer to the backyard, assuming they want to have those.
Yeah, so they
Which
could
I
eaten up, but they
imagine-
could just push them back further.
Yeah, so these windows could just shift. If it starts getting awkward, maybe there's one window instead of the two pairs, and then they've got the two pair here.
So,
So I'm visualizing this. If this is the direction you can go, I see how to work with Ahmad and Kairash.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments, everybody?
Back to the drawing board.
I just wanted to say that, I mean, those are really interesting suggestions, and I appreciate them. I think I'm maybe more in favor of not pushing out the little recessed patio and continuing to push out, as you suggested, the other area, because one of the things I like about that recess is that it makes those sliding glass doors not very visible from the street, and that is also like not, I mean, that is super that's more contemporary
Yes.
than anything else that we're looking at. And so if that's going to get pushed out, those become more visible. And I just worry that might be calling more attention, like through some of these changes to the rear than.
Could we put a condition that the doors be designed in such a way that they, I mean, I can
Well,
imagine,
if we're
I can
looking at-
imagine French doors on a minimal traditional.
Yeah, if we're
divided
looking at
lights and-
4 panels, we could have 2 side lights and a pair of doors in the center, fully glazed, because this house doesn't have divided light windows, so it wouldn't make sense.
Oh, okay.
So just fully glazed doors with 2 side lights, probably 1, 1, and 1 in terms of proportions. But if they wanted larger door opening, it could be half, 1.5, 1.5, half to get the module right.
I think that would be an improvement over what's proposed.
Okay.
Yeah, if they become visible, then we should address those too, yeah. Okay, so what do you need from us, Jay?
What I'm going to do is read back a series of conditions.
Okay.
You can see if you support those or not, but let me get my head around the conditions before I do that. So,
While he's doing that, does everyone feel like they've said their piece? Okay.
okay, so I'll go to the recommended staff conditions to start. So staff condition 1, we're going to read back differently. We're going to eliminate condition 3. We're going to maintain condition 2. And then condition 1 is going to be rejiggered to pull out the east facade of the master bedroom so it aligns with the projected wall on the second floor where the cantilever is. At the center of the rear facade, we're going to pull out the window assembly wall to the point where the hallway ends. And then we're going to reconfigure the doors. So instead of having a foldable wall of glass, we're going to have a pair of single light glazed doors with side lights on either side to span the width of that opening. And the side lights, we can work on the configuration. I don't have, whether it's 1, 1, and 1, or they want a bigger door, we could work with that either way.
Right.
I like your belly wrap idea, a visual.
The belly wrap.
Belly band?
Belly band.
Okay, so let's just, before we go there, we could still have a belly band here, here, and here. So yeah, that would work.
Think about,
I'll
that's a
put it in,
consideration.
that can be part of the motion, and you guys can,
Yeah, I'll make it as part of like more of a consideration, I think, rather than
Oh,
you want it to be
I'm happy having that as a condition.
an actual condition?
Yeah.
yeah, it's very, when we've done it on DRB projects, it's a little detail that's actually fairly powerful in the design
Especially viewed
impact.
from the street, it looks great.
So,
Great.
belly band at the 3, but not wrapping on the north facade, because then we run into other issues.
Well, you may not now because you don't have the cantilever.
No, but we still would have, we'd still have, there'd be a belly band right here on the backyard facade. And we could run that here, align it with the bottom of the wood here, so it's not the end of the world, but
Since it's not cantilevered anymore, it doesn't feel totally out of place. I mean, it's not visible from the street, so I suppose that's up to the homeowner whether or not they want to do that. Is that correct?
ultimately, technically, when all the plants go away, we can sort of see down between the two houses, so technically it is somewhat visible. There's no expense to it, so I don't see a downside to doing it. The only downside would be if doing it here started messing with the alignment here. We wouldn't want it to be offset from the existing termination. These drawings, again, we've had some accuracy issues. We'll have to verify. Generally, the siding in a gable ends at the roof plate. This shows it ending a little before the roof plate. So we'll just do some field verification.
Can you, so we're still proposing the belly band even though the east elevation's going to be flush? That there's no projection, but there'll still be a belly band?
they're talking about,
Okay.
Yeah, the
What-
idea being it does help break up
breaks up
two-story
the two
masses to
levels.
some degree.
So in terms of, can we talk a little bit about what the specific detailing we're thinking about for the belly band? I'm assuming it'd be a piece of wood, but what dimensions, how's the wood going to be treated? Is it just going to be a painted plank?
Yeah, it's basically a painted plank, and if they wanted to, I don't know where the commission would come in on a hardy product for a new intervention like this that's not super visible. But whether it's wood or synthetic wood, I'd picture about an 8-inch height.
I mean, I
would
just
probably
wouldn't
be
want
appropriate, but
like a sharp edge, just painted plank. That's not minimal traditional. I mean, it seems like there should be some detailing on the plank in terms of like a lip or a little cut, a mold.
Oh, yeah, it would have to have something across the top to shed water.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so that there's not like a joint there, and it could be.
Yeah,
and the
okay, that's what I'm getting
It could
at.
be installed before the stucco comes, so the stucco
Almost like a
laps over the top of
groove
it.
or something that you would have seen in the 40s as opposed to just throwing up a piece of wood and calling it a belly band.
Although you might have seen that,
minimal
definitely a few years later, you'd see that, so, but, yeah, so we could work on getting a detail at the top edge, I think is where you're going.
Yeah, and I'm thinking either like a little OG, like an OG, like a cut, like a molded cut in there, like an angled cutaway,
Swoop, kind of?
like a swoop. Or something to just drain the water, some sort of some sort of OG.
I would probably recommend something, a thin strip that's actually deeper in profile than the band itself, so that when the water comes down the wall, that sheds water instead of it running over the face of the wood.
Yeah, and maybe there's a way to have it reference some of the wood in the gable ends somehow, so there's a continuum in terms of the treatment.
I think it's going to work well with the gable ends, even if it were just a flat board. I don't know. I'll look at that more closely. I think those are pretty simple, just lap siding in the gables.
Okay,
so.
just because if some of the detailing's done wrong in the belly band, it could actually stand out even more. It seems like if it's not done right on a big new massing, 2-story massing, and then you have a stripe on it, I just want to make sure that detailing's good.
Well, believe me, some of the things we've done through DRB are not masterpieces of architecture when we recommend the belly band, but the belly band just by its presence helps break the massing up. So, but I hear your point, and that will be. Well, I've written that as we have four new one condition with 4 sections.
Can I look at the west elevation just one last time? Okay, and then go back to the north? Okay, so, and pardon me for this if I'm totally not thinking this makes any sense, but is there ever a situation, I feel like I've seen situations where, looking at the north elevation, where just for the sake of symmetry, that the roof line that's presently cut off, the one on the right that just has the hard cutoff, that it actually, just from an aesthetic purpose, kind of runs down the side of the wall as if it continues. Does that not work when it's flush?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it.
Doesn't work when it's
Then we're
flush.
getting, because, yeah, just running the siding would just look bizarre. And if we took the rake line, the little cornice line here, and brought it down, it
Because it's
wouldn't,
flush,
it
it's
wouldn't
weird.
weather very well. It would just be sitting there like 2 inches deep, and so.
Okay.
Yeah, if this were more prominent, facing
Yeah,
a
stuck
street,
out or
that
something.
would definitely be something I would have been talking about, because it's not ideal. What we would do if this were more prominent is push this wall in also, so that at least a foot of the roof came down
Gotcha.
on the side, but here it didn't seem like it was important
Okay.
enough.
Okay, so why don't you read those conditions back, and hopefully someone will make a motion based on them.
Okay, so number one condition is the design of the addition will be redesigned so that the ground floor is pulled out to be flush with the currently cantilevered wall at the second floor. The window wall at the main living space is going to be pulled out so that becomes flush with the wall of the hallway. A new roof will be added over the portion where the hallway does not exist, so the portion to the south. The doors in that central section are going to be modified to feature hinged double doors with side lights, single pane glazed doors. And we're going to put a belly band at the bottom, at the midpoint of the second floor where the cantilever now is proposed. And that band will be made with wood, and it will be detailed to have some sort of lip across the top that serves as a shadow line plus a water shedding kind of device, which I won't write into the condition. It'll just be, it'll have a little lip at the top, so.
Okay,
And then the condition about the windows, condition 2, will remain.
great.
So
Anyone-
basically, 2 conditions. I think it's easier sometimes to write this all as one condition rather than breaking it up, but
Okay,
it's possible to break it up if you want.
Kathy.
I will move that we, that we approve the project with staff's conditions and the 4 conditions that we've.
It's going to be 2 conditions now, but one of them's a little, a multi-part
Right,
condition.
with
so.
conditions 1 and 2 and the 4 conditions that we added.
Great,
Second.
terrific. Roll call,
Who
please.
seconded? Daniel, okay.
Chair Paul, or Commissioner Paul.
Okay, roll call. Commissioner Doom,
Yes.
Commissioner Head,
Yes.
Commissioner Paul,
Yes.
Commissioner Yurka,
Yes.
Chair Crignani,
Yes.
5-0 to approve with conditions.
Great. Thank you, Ahmad, for your time, and thank you to your designer for calling in. We
To
appreciate
your
it.
children.
Your poor wife.
Yes, oh my gosh, she was ready to
I
go.
don't know. if
Poor wife outside with the kids. In the cold.
So thank you very much. Jay and you will be working together now, so that's, continue to work together, so thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 7A, new business. 1215 Viscano Drive, Glendale Register nomination and Mills Act application. As soon as Jay's ready, he will present us that report.
That's right. And I'll just let Kailash know we don't need him anymore.
Design reviews are always-
Kailash, are you there? I think he hung up. So, all right. So thanks to the Techmars for their patience. You know, this hasn't been a great day, so welcome to the hearing. 17, I'm sorry. Oops. Okay, 1215 Viscano Drive is a Glendale Register nomination with the Mills Act application. And let me get my stuff together. I'm not as prepared for this one, pardon me. So this is a house in the Ross Moyne Historic District on Viscano Drive. It is a Tudor revival built in 1927. We've seen several Tudor revivals at this kind of smaller scale in the last several hearings that we've had. We do know the architect for this house. It was a firm called Dunlop and Crosby. Mr. Dunlop did some interesting projects. We don't know enough about them to even place them in any context. Some of the other projects were kind of grander houses, and like many architects of this era, they were very fluent in the period revival styles and certainly had skills that we don't always see today, I'll just say. The house was built for Edmund and Isabella Adams. They occupied, Mr. Adams died in 1941, but his widow Isabella lived in the house for decades after, so the family occupied the house for about 50 years, which is always not historically meaningful, but nice local color kind of stuff. In the nomination, in our review of the nomination, we couldn't find any significance for any of the people associated with the house. There were no significant events associated with the house. The nomination suggests that the Dunlop connection might have some meaning, but we couldn't find enough evidence to make a case for that. So the bulk of the review that we recommend you consider is whether this house is eligible under criterion 3 for its architectural character. And I'll walk you through some photos of the house. So we see from the front, we have a really nice Tudor arch at the front with leaded glass windows and diamond panes. We have half timbering, but we'll talk about that a little more toward the end because it's a very interesting situation. The door echoes, the front window is deeply recessed, has this kind of splayed opening, which is very nice. The door echoes the Tudor arch at that location. Even the vents on the house seem very appropriate to the Tudor Revival style. On the left side, we have a small square bay that projects with the roof continuing over that. These are original wood windows. These are original windows. Most of the other windows in the house, there are a few other original wood windows on this living room wing, but most of the other windows had been replaced prior to the current ownership. And the Tekmars actually brought in kind of new windows that are much closer to the character of the house, that definitely are a huge improvement over what was there before. But we'll see those in a second. They don't quite live up to the standard that we see with these wood windows. The front facade has been altered in terms of hardscape with this walkway. This is also prior owners to the Tekmars. This porch was added at some point. It's not a typical feature of period revival unless it's Spanish generally, or of a craftsman house to have a porch like this. Obviously the railings are more recent vintage. So that begins the story that this house has a lot of changes. And even though it's a beautiful little house and visiting, it was a very nice house, and this is always hard for me to tell someone like you live in a great house, but it's not quite what we look for on the register, because what we're looking for is how do we tell the story of why this house and why not a lot of other Tudor revivals. Rosmoyne in particular is chock-a-block with Tudor revivals very similar to this, and not every contributor, I should have mentioned this as a contributor obviously in the district, but we can't say that every contributor is going to be significant. The Tekmars considered the idea of using the Mills Act for contributing structures for this house, but they've done all of the work that they anticipate doing. They don't have any issues that would have put them into the realm of what City Council directed for that program, and chose to just take their chances with applying for the register straight. The driveway gate also is an added feature. Coming around, the front door is appropriate to the style of the house, but is not original. And here are the new windows that were installed that are recessed. They brought back sills. The sills had been removed previously. So, like I said, in many ways, the work that was done by the current owners really did have an incremental enhancement of the historic character of the house and its contribution to the neighborhood. At the rear facade, We're used to seeing more changes often at the rear. The French doors were installed by prior owners, the deck also by prior owners. You can see here on the right, this is one of the original wood windows, so that room on the left side of the house when you're looking from the street has its windows. The garage is original. Obviously, the door was changed out. There's what appears to be a vinyl window. I didn't actually check this out directly when I was on my site visit, but it looks like a vinyl Z-bar window. And then this nice little cottage guest house was built in the backyard, kind of emulating the style of the garage. So unfortunately, we're not able to recommend that this house, that HPC recommend to council that this house be listed in the Glendale Register. But one very interesting thing going through the Google Street View history is that we have 3 different versions of this front gable. This is what was in place when Ross Moyne was surveyed. So in the survey, there was no half timbering in the gable. When you look around Ross Moyne, and especially looking up and down Ethel, there are a number of Tudor revivals, and this is true of all period revival neighborhoods. Sometimes Tudor revivals didn't even have the half timbering. They had the steeply pitched roof, they had the front-facing gables, but without that. And then we see at some point it got some half timbering, but it had these little curvy parts. Looking at the precedent of curves and half timbering, you see it, especially in real medieval kind of European precedent, but you see it also on period or on Tudor revival, but usually not this kind of sharply angled, like half quarter round kind of thing. It's a little bit unusual, but it doesn't look bad. But at some point those were removed, and then just the verticals and the horizontal were left, which look totally fine and appropriate to the house, and they're definitely an enhancement. And if I remember correctly, the Tekmars bought the house with this look and didn't remove these curves. So it's just funny the attention that this area has gotten, and my guess is it's been by people who are trying to make the house, fit better into the neighborhood. And it was also done after the district was designated. No permits were pulled, but I wouldn't complain too much about someone trying to do something like this. So that's the end of the presentation. This is, the recommendation is to not recommend to council.
Thank you. I presently don't have any speaker cards, but our homeowner is here. Do you want to speak, or would you like us to just?
Well, I just wanted to say
Just come up
If
real
it's
quick to
yes,
the
then
mic.
come on up.
I'll ask you to fill out a speaker card when we're done, so.
You don't mind just introducing yourself and.
my name is Carmen Tekmar. I'm new to Glendale, and I'm very happy to be here. And I just thought my house, I made it look better than what it was, even from the inside and the outside. And I tried to get the windows closest to what should be, but with having the protection of heat and air and everything to be safe, and not having leaking and with the wood windows. The inside is wood, the outside is all clad, correct?
Yeah.
You know better than me, my husband's not here. So we try to keep it as close to the aesthetic of what it should have been, but in a better 21st century vision.
Yes.
So that's all
Okay,
I have
great.
to say.
Thank you very much. I will close the public hearing. Jay, before you go, Carmen, we will have you fill out a little blue form. You don't have to do it now, but before
They're
you
on
go.
the table right near the entrance over there. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Okay, I've closed the public hearing. Anybody want to start?
When was the cottage built in the back?
It is in the I don't know if it's in the staff report. It's definitely in the application. Not too long ago.
It's recent.
Yeah, it's fairly recent. You want me to look it up?
No, it's within the last 30 years.
I would think so. I have it right here. Just give me a second.
Kathy, while he's looking?
Oh, I have a question
Oh,
for
never mind.
Jay.
We've got a line forming for Jay.
Okay, get in line, everyone.
I'm looking too.
March 1994.
94, okay.
30 years.
Almost 30 years? Yeah, exactly 30 years. Wow.
So Jay, I was just wondering when the owners, did they speak with you as part of the window program?
Yeah, we were involved with the windows.
And the issue of applying for the Glendale Register, I'm sorry, applying for the Mills Act as a contributor didn't come up at that point.
It might have. I have no memory of that.
'Cause I just wanted to make just a suggestion that if there are owners who are interested in, rehabilitating the house and removing inappropriate features and replacing them, just if, and you may have done this, but just to suggest, well, if you want to go a little bit farther, that, you could be eligible for the Mills Act.
I picture that we had that talk, but I just can't say
Okay.
if you want to reopen the hearing. But your point's taken, and it is something I think I would normally do.
Right. And it may be-
And talking to Ms. Tekmar when I was at the site, the main issue, aside from not putting in, wood windows, is that the grid pattern is not, the panes are too big. If they had put in the windows that they have now, but put one vertical on each panel, each leaf of the window, it would have come a lot closer to matching what's there. And Mrs. Tekmar made the point that that was kind of not the direction that she wanted. I don't remember in our window review how deep we went into that, to be honest.
Yeah, and I know that there would need to be other things, presumably, to, not just the windows, but the porch and the front. And I assume it's a non-starter now, just having spent so much money on those windows.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But
Okay. You got your answer, Daniel? Do you have anything else to say? Okay. No? No? Okay. Well, I do think, thank you for bringing this forward. I do think it's, for those watching, this is a great example of historic districting at work. To the point that our homeowner made about wanting to choose a more modern material and things like that, the tax credit that goes along with the Mills Act is to go toward many different things. It's to go toward having to pay extra money for different quality, maybe wood materials or things that might be of a higher cost, but also to maybe offset the fact that your utility bills might be a little bit higher because you're having to make those selections. So this is a great example of wanting to honor, which we totally appreciate, the super wonderful charm of this house, still give it the modern feel that you want to be comfortable inside, but at the same time keep it historically, not perfect, but pretty darn near close for those of us that can see it from the public right of way. So I think, if anything, I appreciate that you brought this forward for no other reason than we can use this to help educate the public. This is exactly why we do this. This is a perfect example of a house that needed some help, and you guys did it, and you worked with the city, and everybody was happy, and it all worked out great in the end. So thank you for that. Jay, can I ask you a quick question about the gate? I think you mentioned in your staff report that you didn't like the location of it. Can we talk about driveway gates for a minute? Okay. So for other homeowners that might be wanting to put a gate across their driveway, is there a specific ordinance or code that dictates where those gates have to go? Or is it more of just a design aesthetic, particularly for homes that are in historic districts?
It's design review. It's
design review.
Yeah.
Okay.
Until we have objective design review, where we would probably have some, what we find, and this is something we hold new construction except for some very contemporary designs where it makes sense for the gate to kind of come flush to the front corner of the house. But certainly for gates retrofitting on traditional older properties, historic or not, we generally ask for it to be set back from this corner so that this corner reads as the structural endpoint of that part of the house, and that the gate is, and here, back in the day when we see old gates, they're often much further back on the driveway, but we
All the way to
understand
the back in some cases.
people now have greater security concerns. They want to make more usable space for the kids or the dogs or whatever. So in this case, if we were just looking at this fresh, I'd probably say this, between these two windows would be the best location. And then we'll hear people say, but then my window's exposed to all the bad things that can happen there. And I'm like, well, so it's the front of your house, and, so we try to work with people to acknowledge that there are legitimate safety concerns. That wasn't an issue with the Tekmars, but that would be our general guidance, to push it back.
For people that are interested in those things in the future. Okay.
Plus getting a design, this design we wouldn't have approved either. We would have probably kept it simple with a flat top. The ironwork perforating here and wood, if it were painted, something very close to this would be something I think we could approve, because this is actually a nicer design than we see on a lot of the off-the-shelf gates that get installed. But putting a segmental arch wouldn't be appropriate. Someone might come and say, well, what if we put a Tudor arch? And I'd be like, no, that's not the right way to go either, in a district certainly.
And so if someone's working with a fence company, and the fence company says, oh,
Sounds like you have a very specific.
and the fence company says, oh, you don't need a permit to put in a fence. You don't need a permit to
approval
put in a
from
fence.
planning anywhere in the city.
Anywhere in the city, regardless of being in a historic district.
$50 design review fee for fences and walls. The outcome is building and safety used to require permits for walls and fences. Then it was only walls and fences over 7 feet high, which require an engineer's report. So any fence under 7 feet doesn't need a permit. Permits are what used to kick everything into design review. And it left us in a kind of a, well, how are we going to do this? So we do have a process for reviewing fences and walls, and driveway gates don't quite fit into that, but we review those all the time also.
So a house in a district that wants to put up a fence, what is the process? That wants to put a driveway
in a
gate.
district, if you open your brochure and look at the second panel on your brochure,
Let's read, shall we?
you will see that hardscape gates, driveway gates, fences and walls all require permission, even if a permit isn't required.
Right.
And so we called out things that require permits and then things that don't require permits, because that's one of the hard spots. And I don't blame
it's
property
very
owners when
challenging.
they don't understand that. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense on the surface or even deep under, but that's the way it is. So.
And so who would they reach out to?
Well, they would apply if they just have general questions, they could start with our general question line, planner on duty. They could come to the counter and talk to a planner. They could call me directly. We will be hiring a planner to support the preservation work. The job notice just went out on Tuesday, so.
You said they do have to fill
many
out an
varieties,
actual-
but now that we, since they don't have to get the permit, we just have to give them some level of permission. So, which in districts I do by doing design review on the gate. Once we come to something that staff can approve, we print it out. We used to stamp it. We might even still stamp it. We're not using our stamps as much as we used to because everything's electronic now. And then we put it in a property file.
Okay.
For
So they
that
don't go
address.
to building and safety for this?
For a driveway gate, no, unless
have to come to
it's, most people putting driveway
Motorized, it
gates
needs
want
electrical, right,
motorized,
of
and
course.
then
There's
it's
an
building and
electrical and all of
safety.
that involved, but if it's really just a open and
If it's just
on a
an
hinge,
open shut padlock kind of deal,
they would
don't-
come to your department,
yeah.
planning department. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you can see how things might fall through the cracks on that.
Yes,
So
it's very, yes.
it's hard to.
Gosh, all of my neighbors have gates that are right there. I said, yes, well, that's not necessarily they didn't necessarily go about it the right way.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do still, if the commission's position is to not recommend this to council, you still want a motion stating that, is that correct?
Yeah, we need that motion because the Techmars have the right to still go to council with a non-recommendation. Most people haven't chosen to do so. We'll talk after next week probably, and get their sense. I have a feeling from what we talked about that they probably won't pursue it at council.
Okay, well, do we have a motion on this part? Do you want more discussion?
No, I would like to address the property owner. Because I do agree with staff's recommendation based on the alterations to the original property, but I also just want to say how happy I am that you guys bought it and are really looking after it. And those windows, they clearly, I spoke briefly with your husband, and, it's clear how much you love Glendale, how much you love that house, and that the windows that were there before, were a disaster. And also being nosy, I looked inside the house, and it is immaculate. Well, I was with the husband.
Oh, you were there, okay. You were just
Yeah.
walking.
Sneaking around the house with the
Kathy
husband? Is
doesn't
that what you
believe
were
in
doing?
trespassing laws, just so everyone knows.
The casual trespass.
And well, no, I wasn't trespassing. I was invited.
around the house with the
I
husband.
did
We
my
get it.
job as a commissioner. And I just wanted to say it's immaculate and lovely inside. And you really have done a wonderful job. And I'm grateful for the work you've done. Thank you.
Neighbors love me.
Yes, I bet they do.
I
We all
bet.
do. We all do. All of the city does. With that, does anyone want to make a motion?
Must be the bad guy. Huh?
Well, I make a motion that we support city staff recommendation regarding the finding of non-eligibility of the subject property.
Do I have a second?
Sure, I'll echo Kathy's for as great as the house is. I'm sorry it doesn't meet our criteria for that, but enjoy your lovely house. I enjoy my lovely house. It will never be on the historic district either, but it's still a great house.
And I do want to say also that, I mean, this isn't in a historic district, right?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an excellent example of a district contributor. It's exceptionally, you've obviously put a lot of attention into it. It's lovely. It has a lot of good things going for it, in my opinion, but it's as Jay mentioned, it's a high bar, and I feel like, especially for these more sort of vernacular examples of Tudor revival, one would, if they're going to be individually designated, oftentimes you want all of the historic features there. And the integrity would need to probably even be better than this. And it's, because I don't think it should be a matter of just because a house is a normal scaled example of a style doesn't mean it should ever be landmarked. But I think what happens is you often want to have, higher integrity than this one has, if that's the case.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Okay, motion from Commissioner Paul, Commissioner Doom second. Commissioner Yurka,
Yes.
Commissioner Head,
Yes.
Commissioner Doom,
Sadly, yes.
Commissioner Paul,
Yes.
Chair Craig Naughty.
We thank you, but yes.
Thank you for
Okay.
staying for all this, too.
Yes, and thank you for making it tonight. Okay, item number 8, Community Development Department updates.
Okay, two updates, well, 2+ updates tonight. The first, upcoming HPOC typo, sorry.
She needed somebody to write.
Throwing your minds back in time when we had a long and torturous meeting talking about 2 applications for Mills Act contracts for contributing structures in historic districts. Over the last year, that was, and I can't remember if that was, I was going to get the date for you, and some of you may remember, it was December 2022, January 2023, something like that. Over the course of 2023, I made several efforts to coordinate with the 2 property owners to get another hearing date. One could do it, one couldn't, the other time it was flip-flopped. And then as I was trying to get that going for the 3rd time, I actually went back to the tape. So thank you very much for 2.5 hours or whatever it was of my life going
that
away
twice?
the 2nd time. And it was clear from the tape that the commission, and I know Commissioner Paul and obviously Commissioner Head were not here then, but the discussion focused on the commission's, and Commissioner Yurka was recused during that discussion, so there were really just the 2 of you left for that. But there were 4 on the dais at that time, if I remember. Yeah, Commissioner Morgan was with us then. So anyway, the discussion didn't focus on the merits or lack of merit of either of the applications, but kind of got focused on the process and the policy that was developed by staff based on the council's direction after the commission had looked at council's direction previously and moved it forward. And there was definitely a lot of concern about how this competitive process works? Should it be a competitive process? How are points assigned? Should points be used? So the discussion kind of kept going on these various topics, and we left it as a continuation of those two items, or the one item with the two applicants. But when I went back to the tape, the commission was very clear that you wanted to return to this as a discussion without the applicants being there, so that you could express yourselves and see if there was a way to move forward or not. If we were able to move forward with commission consensus using something very close to the system that was proposed, we would then have another hearing where we would bring back the two applicants. If the commission was if we have a logjam or there was no consensus, my recommendation would be that the commission ask us to bring this back to council for a council level discussion, since the council had already reviewed the framework for the system, though they didn't review the details of the point system. So, or the formula for determining the points. So what I would like to do, and this is an open discussion as an update item, but what I propose is that I bring this back either at the next hearing but at a hearing where all 5 of you are definitely going to be present, as a discussion item, an agendized discussion item, not an update, but an actual discussion item, to continue that discussion with the goal of having a focused discussion that brings us to a point where we either can move forward with the applications or we need to get council's input on the situation. And the trick in that discussion is I will not be able to discuss the two applicants because they're not going to be part of the agendized item. So we'll just have to police ourselves to make sure that we don't do that. For you two, it'll be easy, but everyone else already has some ideas or remembers things from those items. So that's my proposal. The reason I originally thought I was just going to agendize it for tonight, and I was like, well, that's a lot of background research to do. So one thing I would love to hear from you is, A, is this a good idea? Is this a good approach to handle this? Because we can't leave it open-ended forever. And the other is, do you need, if we scheduled this for February, is that enough time to review a tape? What I was planning to do is give you the link to the tape. You could also look at the council hearing and then the staff reports that accompanied those hearings, which is a bit of a slog in terms of time with the tapes at least. So that's what I'm looking for, any input you guys have.
Right. What did the council think?
Council approved the process that we moved forward with, that we brought to you at that hearing. What council didn't, so they approved the idea that it was a competitive process. They approved and I know there were some questions about where the word competitive is used in writing or where it's sort of implied, but we can still talk about that. But they did approve that the primary idea that Mills Act contracts for contributors shouldn't be awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. There should be some display of the merits and the bang, what I was calling at the hearing, the bang for the buck. If someone's going to get a lifetime perpetuity tax reduction, we have to separate out the candidates that are more worthy from those that are less worthy. With the Glendale Register properties getting the Mills Act kind of by fiat, pretty much, with a few conditions sometimes, we've already made that kind of cut. We've said, okay, you're one of the better, if not best, properties in the city. Therefore, that eligibility determination is pretty easy to make. So council, and I don't remember exactly, but
they weren't directly opposed to it.
No, they were open to, they approved unanimously
very different council
what was
back then,
presented.
but-
And we had brought that to HPC before that. The difference was when I worked out the details, here's this formula where we're saying that presume that you get a 50% tax break, presume you're spending this much on your property, And then we look at the scope of work and we get cost itemizations from the applicant, which we verify with the building department to make sure they're realistic. And then ultimately we came down with a number for each application. For the two, well, it doesn't matter what happened with those two, but we came up with a number. And I think that was the crux of the discussion, was discomfort among some commissioners, but not all. And with this idea of, finding this numeric worthiness value and
then what did
discussions
this-
that there would be better ways to do that, so.
And what did the city attorney think of the point system? Did he give any input?
We didn't bring it to them directly. We could, if that were an issue. I don't know that they would weigh in one way or the other.
Kathy?
Jay, I was just wondering what else we might have on the docket for February, because I'm going to be traveling until a couple days before the hearing, and I could probably do this if it's the only thing, but if there's a bunch of stuff,
Yeah,
it would be
we
hard.
have one design review that's hanging dependent on the owner, and I haven't heard if that's going to be ready or not. We have several Glendale Register applications, but especially at the beginning of the year, those are kind of fungible in terms of when we hear them. So if we do it in March, that certainly gives everyone time. I'll still send out the materials next week so everyone can start their homework. But
Okay.
if that works, because I think it's important that all of you be there. And I think you guys indicated that you wanted that, so.
February 15th or March
15th.
21st?
Okay, thank you.
Jay, how much of the,
So I don't have the calendar. March 23rd is the third.
January
third-
15th
Or March
or March
March
21st.
21st.
21st, okay.
I like the 15th. Get it over with, if there's nothing on that day.
how much of the process that you created, or well, I shouldn't say you, that staff created, how much of the mechanism of it can staff modify without taking everything back to council?
I don't know exactly. If you started modifying, I think we should have more points for this or less points for that, sure. But it came down to the discussion of can you have a competition among two properties when we say that we're going to grant a minimum number of contracts per year of 2? And so that discussion came up. So there were, what I'm going to have to do, and believe me how much I look forward to this, I'm going to have to come up with a way to structure the discussion. So when I send you a staff report, there's something to kind of frame this on. So what I'll try to do is just capture the various ideas that came up and try to organize them in some way.
The point system was specifically something the council blessed. That if there was
I believe they knew that there was going to be a point system. They knew there would be some formula for determining points. They didn't see, roof gets 3 points, window gets 1 point each, or I can't remember what they were. They didn't see that level of detail.
I'm a little bit, forgive me, I'm not super savvy about, a lot of aspects of the Mills Act situation in Glendale. I will be by the time we're ready to review this,
No
though,
doubt.
whether that's next month or March. But I have a couple of general questions that are probably kind of related. Number one is there a sense on the council that they're giving away too many Mills Acts right now? And
Kind of
second,
taking us, this is kind of an update. I think we shouldn't
let's
kind
say-
of talk about that.
yeah,
okay, and then the second question, we won't talk
I'll
about it.
answer that in the Vegas way. Case by case, it has been raised, so.
Okay, we won't talk about it.
It has been
The
raised.
second
so.
part of that is, and maybe this is something that gets kicked back too, but I'll just ask it. Has there been concerns about this? Is some of the issues around Mills Act pandemic related? I know other cities had a really hard time and even shut down the Mills Act system altogether during the pandemic.
No connection.
None at all. Okay.
Okay, thank you for that update.
Okay, so March 21st, barring any unforeseen absences, we'll discuss that.
Great.
And February, we may or may not have a hearing. We'll see if we get this design
All right,
review in.
so it'll be March, not 15th, March 21st.
21st, I'm sorry, yeah.
How does that calendar look?
What's that?
how does that March calendar look with anything else?
I don't have that, I usually forecast a month or two ahead, so
Why would we not have a hearing next month?
we probably will.
Oh, I thought you said we may not have a hearing next month.
Oh, well, if we don't have the, design review items, we need to move faster than Glendale Register items. But we'll probably have a hearing.
Okay.
I don't see why we wouldn't. We have at least 2 or 3 nominations in.
Okay.
Okay, so 8B is an update about the pending and proposed historic districts. So starting with our pending district, Bellhurst. What's up? What's up? What's up, you two? I'm sure. Bellhurst Historic District, we got the report in a while ago. It took a while to fully edit it. It required some work on the editing angle, and now it's with the consultant again, so they're going to be giving us a revised draft. Hopefully it's perfect. Once we have that, but I'll start scheduling, like forecasting the schedule for that. We'll begin the process. We're still going to be doing the old school community meeting because we're still under the old process for Bellhurst. And that's where we will have the materials put up on the web. We'll have, strong outreach. We've always had good outreach for districting. The difference will be this will be a separate public hearing or public community meeting, I'm sorry, and then we'll schedule the HPC hearing to review the draft. Based on that, then we move into the fast-moving portion of this, which is final draft based on comments from the public, from the commission, we get from the community meeting, and then the final review process with HPC, Planning Commission, and City Council. So that I'm predicting we'll have resolution in the year 2024. Halavai. The interesting thing is for Bellhurst, we asked, there was members of the community at the earlier community meetings who were interested in expanding, seeing if an expanded district would be possibly eligible in the future as kind of an add-on. And I haven't received that report yet, but the consultant told me that the southern portion definitely looks like it will work. The northern portion looks like it probably won't work. And that's a much smaller area, and we didn't have, it was really, if I remember, it was just kind of one person who kind of led that discussion, which doesn't mean we discount it, but it wasn't as widespread. So that we'll have to see because we'll have to have we'll use the new process if people come forward with that. And that might even be a streamlined process because we won't have as much work to do to expand a district as we would if we were starting one from scratch. So we've got that. Then we have 2 proposed districts. We have the Verdugo Woodlands District and we have the Cleveland Knolls District that you heard about. My plan is to bring those to the commission, and I was gonna say in February or March, so that could be something that we have on February because some of us would have to recuse anyways. The idea is once the commission hears the item, it becomes a pending district. The district guidelines then start applying legally. And so I don't want these to be, these have sat for a while, especially Verdugo Woodlands. So I want them to be on the books as a pending district. What at this point I can't promise is when we're gonna start moving through the process. So when we staff up again, we're still gonna have a staff learning curve. We also are gonna be starting to work on the east-west and possibly north Glendale survey, which all of these are gonna be time sucks periodically, not through the whole course of them, but periodically they're gonna be huge. So timing, even though we're streamlining, we'll have to see if we can meet the streamlining goals or not. And we'll just honestly analyze that and let you and City Council know if we need to make any changes. But I think the most important thing is we get the protection of the pending district status that's built into the ordinance now. And if it's not February, it will be March. I don't see any reason it would be longer than that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go.
I just wanted to say that if it ends up being March and you want to move the discussion of the contributors,
We'll push that further back.
or you could do it in February. I mean, I'll make it work if I have to.
So you are around.
No, I'm around. I'm just getting back just before the hearing, and I just was concerned if there's an agenda of 6 items that I wouldn't be, that's what I was saying.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be traveling for 2.5 weeks, and I'll be out of the country, and I will not be thinking about historic preservation in Glendale.
yes,
You'll-
you
you'll-
will.
Yes, I will.
I
Okay.
mean, who are you trying to kid? Who are you trying to kid?
You got my number.
Well, then that makes things easier, because I was just going to say, as I'm thinking about February, under the new under the streamlining, and I tend to always have over-optimistic time goals, and this is a lifelong problem, but we've seen it here many times. We have to get the website up and running with all the new information. We would, I think, have to have the translations done before that, and we would have to have it would be a joint community meeting and HPC hearing. So February, let's just say that's not going to happen for the districts. March, I hope it could. So let's say March, April is probably more realistic for that discussion.
And I think it would be a good idea that those don't happen the same night that we do the Mills Act for contributors.
No.
Because that would be
We've
just a
already
total.
built into streamlining is that on the night when we have the joint meeting, we don't have any other hearing items. The whole evening is devoted to the district. And then we would probably, thinking about it, we wouldn't have the 2 districts on the same night either. I don't think that would make sense.
We all know who applied first.
No doubt, no one questions that, so everyone's been very patient, so, so Verdugo Woodlands, Selva de Verdugo will go first, and Cleveland Knoll second.
Were you handed a speaker card?
I was.
Okay.
We don't usually have speakers on update items, so it's your discretion. I'm not trying to silence you, I just want to say that's not typical. Chair is the boss.
We have a speaker card submitted for Alan Durham, which we will happily accept with a 3-minute limit.
Okay. Thank you so much for letting me speak on this item, because I wasn't sure that I would be able to. But I have another property in Glendale, residential, and of course, I think it's straddling Bellhurst as well.
On
And
Jackson Street,
if I'm correct about what Jay said prior, I think, Jay, you were saying that pending districts like Bellhurst would eventually hit the website, but proposed districts like Cleveland Knoll would not until they're pending, am I
Until
right?
HPC hearing is held.
And so I never got any notice of Bellhurst. I don't know if there's any required notice to people who live in the area. If my property isn't in Bellhurst, it's half a block below.
Where we have a 500-foot buffer around the district that we send out to. That's how people knew to come to the hearing and say, hey, we want it to be bigger than what the proponents had proposed for us, so.
Yeah.
So I
would
can't-
think
I-
I was
yeah.
within 500 feet of the original proposed boundary, but I never.
Stocks to where, are you south of Bellhurst or?
South of Stalker.
Half a block south of Stalker.
Yeah, you should have been
And
notified.
we got nothing. And so I didn't even know about those outreach meetings. I don't know why we didn't get notice, because I would have gone and argued that it should come 1 block farther south.
Well, your neighbors took care of that for you.
So I didn't
I'll
know
double
what
check. We rely on the assessor's property ownership information when we send out notices.
So-
If you've owned the house for a long time, you should have been in there, and I keep the mailing lists. I don't know if there's any point in going back, but maybe I could see if there was
No,
an error or
don't.
something.
I wouldn't. I'm just saying that, I was a little surprised because by the time, it was really rolling by the time I found out about it. And then I still didn't know who to contact.
Yeah, we're now using a different noticing format that I don't know if that's going to work with the streamlining, but we used to do mailed notices that were just folded up pieces of paper. Now we do green postcards, oversized postcards. So that's what you should have received for Bellhurst. So.
And are you saying that someone's already proposed to come down to Dryden, perhaps?
Yeah, to Dryden would be the southern boundary, but it's for the future, not for the current.
Oh, for the future, but it wouldn't change what's being proposed?
No, so there would have to be a new application for the southern portion, the Stalker to Dryden portion. It would probably go faster than a regular from scratch district application. And the consultant is doing rudimentary. We're going to get a report from them about your area. I haven't seen it, so I don't know how much will be in there. But they're looking at contributor status, non-contributor status. They're counting the number of contributors to see if it meets. They're looking whether it meets the criteria. So we're getting the basic threshold information that we get for all of our districts. So it'll make the process easier. Right now, there's the only open question on Bellhurst on the south is whether the southern side of Stalker is included, or if we wait for the expanded area.
Gotcha.
And there are arguments on both sides of that question. So.
Okay. Thank you for the update.
Thank
Where does your tax bill go for that house? Does it go to Cleveland or does it go to Jackson, the tax bill?
It goes to Cleveland.
And that's where you mail to the assessor's mailing address, right, for the property?
We mail to owners and residents, so it should have gone to the address in Bellhurst and to the tax assessor's address. When we mail to residents, it just says resident. It doesn't have your name on it, so it may have looked like junk mail.
I don't toss much mail. It's really got to look like junk mail.
Yeah, if it's got the
for
city
me.
seal on it, you're not, of all
Yeah,
people,
it's-
Alan is
it's
not throwing away
green,
something with a
it's-
city seal on it. Not after he sits through this whole meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alan.
Thanks.
Okay, are you done, Jay?
Do you want more?
I mean, sure, if you've got it, bring it on.
Don't got it.
Okay.
I'm ready to go too. So.
All right. Thank you for a great first meeting. Welcome, Jeffrey. And we will see you all next month. We are adjourned at 8:06.
Terrific.